Chapter 1758. Pushed to the end, the two early overgods Shenjian had stopped were both cold. They swore, "God damn it. We're two mighty overgods, yet a mere god kept us busy for so long, allowing that soul to approach God King Duanmu's remains. Just a mere god has actually made us lose God King Duanmu's legacy. This is unforgivable." One of the overgods in tattered clothes said coldly, "The crimes of this god is so great that even killing him won't be enough. We have to let him understand that death will only be a relief." The two overgods were sunken-faced. Killing intent flooded their eyes. They were two early overgods. They possessed an advantage in cultivation, comprehension, and numbers, yet it was so arduous for them to kill a single god. They were even reduced to such a horrible condition and were completely embarrassed. Their desire to kill Shenjian was extremely intense. They directly ignored Fairy Hao Yu's threats. The threat from a fragile soul was great enough to stun them for a moment, but they did not believe that Fairy Hao Yu would actually possess such strength. At this moment, the bloodied Jian Chen climbed up from the ground. He clung onto his last shred of consciousness and arrived before Shenjian as quickly as possible. He directly grabbed Shenjian, who was so heavily injured that he could not even stand. At the same time, he formed a seal with his hand. Linear lightning release. Jian Chen became engulfed in light as he turned into a bolt of lightning, shooting towards the entrance with unbelievable speed. In just a single instance, he had arrived at the entrance and was about to escape. The eyes of all the early overgods narrowed in shock as they watched Jian Chen approach the entrance in a single instance. Without any exception, none of them were able to do anything about it. Even they could not stop Jian Chen with the speed he currently demonstrated. What shocking speed! Even the laws of wind pale in comparison, an overgod sighed in surprise. He had never seen someone move so quickly in his entire life. The figures of Jian Chen and Shenjian had even begun to stretch as they flew. They were like streams of light. After reaching Sword Spirit, Jian Chen could naturally move much faster with the linear lightning release. However, a burly man appeared at the entrance at this moment. He was dejected, appearing there with regret and gloom. He had clearly just come in. The burly man was not weak. He was a mid-overgod. Evidently, he was one of the overgods who had left earlier in pursuit of the golden sword. As soon as the burly man entered the third hut, Jian Chen just so happened to collide into him. Bang! A visible ripple appeared from their collision, expanding out into the surroundings. Jian Chen's body was knocked back, and the terrifying speed that linear lightning release brought suddenly vanished. Jian Chen felt like his entire body had become dislocated from the collision as his entire body wrenched in pain. His organs had completely turned to mush, and he vomited blood again and again. Caught off guard, the burly man staggered backwards from the collision. Each step left behind a deep imprint. In the end, he fell on his bottom. His face became completely flushed as his organs also churned from the collision. "Which brat ran into me?" The burly man leapt up and bellowed out. His face was pale with rage. He had just come in from outside and had not grasped the situation, yet someone had knocked him onto his bottom. He would naturally be enraged. What he did not know was that his sudden entry had cut off all of Jian Chen's hopes to escape, forcing him back into despair. Jian Chen had become even more wounded after their collision. Soon afterwards, other overgods entered one by one as well. They were all dejected and filled with regret. These people were the experts who took part in the fight for the flying sword. They had all returned now. Many of them were speckled with blood and sickly pale. They were injured. Jian Chen became gloomy when he saw this. He secretly sighed. He knew that he was probably done for. Just when he thought of that, his pupils became completely red. His last shred of consciousness had vanished, and he had lost his mind completely now. However, as he was simply too heavily injured, his head fell the moment he lost his mind, and he fell unconscious. Shenjian had also fallen unconscious beside him. The force from striking the burly man with the linear lightning release had deepened his wounds as well. If it were not for the fact that both of them had reached godhood, just the force from the collision would have been enough to reduce them to mincemeat. The return of the other overgods made the expressions Guhan Shui, Bing Lu, and Feng Buell change. The three of them did not hesitate, they immediately fled towards the entrance. Without a single doubt, Jian Shen had become everyone's enemies by assisting Fairy Hao Yu to pass through the power of laws and approach God King Duanmu's remains. They had become his accomplices, so remaining here would not help them at all. Don't let them escape. Stop them. An early overgod called out as soon as the three overgods fled. His eyes were filled with intense hatred. Guhan Shui, Bing Lu, and Feng Buell fled extremely quickly, shooting towards the entrance with lightning speed. Along the way, Guhan Shui and Feng Buell tried to grab Jian Chen and Shen Jian so that they could take them away with them. However, the two overgods that Shen Jian fought before stopped Feng Buell and Guhan Shui. At the same time, the burly man who had been knocked onto his bottom looked over coldly. The man was a mid-overgod. Guhan Shui and Feng Buell's hearts immediately jumped when he looked over. They could not afford to bother with Jian Chen and Shen Jian anymore. They immediately charged off without any hesitation. The overgods who fought against Shen Jian and Jian Chen immediately pursued them. At the same time, they called out for the other overgods to stop the three. However, the overgods who had come in later had no idea what was going on. Coupled with the fact that the people yelling at them were only early overgods, they did not move. In the end, the three of them escaped successfully. God damn it, why did you let them escape? They're accomplices. They helped a soul pass through the power of laws. The soul has probably already laid her hands on God King Duanmu's items now, an early overgod who fought against Shen Jian said regretfully. What did you say? Someone passed through the layer of power and approached God King Duanmu's remains? The expressions of all the overgods who had just returned changed when they heard that. They all cried out as they glared at the person who had just spoken. Soon afterwards, the early overgods explained the recent events. Every single one of the overgods that had just returned paled after hearing the story as they glared at the unconscious Jian Chen and Shen Jian with killing intent. Chapter 1759, Rescue. Since that soul is with Jian Chen, we can't let Jian Chen go, a late overgod growled. Killing intent surged in his eyes, creating a chilling sight. Yeah, we can't let Jian Chen go. Jian Chen actually decided to work with his companion to steal God King Duanmu's possessions while we were away. We can't let him go so easily. The surrounding overgods all spoke righteously. Every single one of them was very indignant. It was fine that they had failed to obtain God King Duanmu's flying sword, but how could they accept that someone else had taken away all of God King Duanmu's other possessions as well? The late overgod, Yang Kai, stood in the group with the other overgods from the royal city of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. However, they all remained silent about what Jian Chen was going through. At this moment, a black-robed old man walked out from the group. He stared at Jian Chen coldly and said, I know a soul extraction technique, so I'll extract Jian Chen's soul and leave it for all of you to deal with. With that, he directly made his way towards Jian Chen. The black-robed man was the ancestor of the Mo family from the divine kingdom of Qingyang. He was a mid-overgod. No one stopped the ancestor of the Mo family. They just watched on. Jian Chen had stolen the fortune that belonged to them, so they were naturally filled with hatred towards him. They were tempted to kill Jian Chen then and there. The ancestor of the Mo family arrived before Jian Chen. He directly extended his hand towards Jian Chen and grabbed him. However, when his hand touched Jian Chen's damaged armor, his eyes narrowed by an undetectable amount. A god artifact. This armor is actually a god artifact. The ancestor of the Mo family was greatly shocked as his heart churned. God artifacts were treasures that surpassed saint artifacts. They were extremely precious and rare. Even a supreme god king like Duanmu could not possess one. Under ordinary circumstances, only chaotic primes could own a god artifact. There were extremely few infinite primes who did own one. Even most infinite primes in the saints' world use treasures that were either half-god artifacts or supreme-quality saint artifacts. Any single god artifact was an item that infinite primes dreamed of. There were just too many records that detailed god artifacts in the saints' world, so even though the ancestor of the Mo family had never seen a god artifact before, he knew a lot about them with his strength at mid-over-god. As a result, he immediately recognized the grade of the armor when he touched it. However, the ancestor of the Mo family showed none of his current feelings on his face. He examined the damaged armor like it was nothing special and said indifferently, "I never thought that Jian Chen would actually have an 8th grade saint artifact on him. It's just a pity that it's too heavily damaged, but the materials that went into creating it are worth a little." As he said that, the ancestor of the Mo family took the armor off Jian Chen steadily and stowed it away in his space ring. However, he was nowhere near as calm as he appeared on the surface. Instead, he was extraordinarily excited. He just hid his excitement deeply. Although the god artifact was damaged, it was still a god artifact after all. It was worth nothing to primordial realm experts, but it was a supreme treasure to any over-god. I'm rich. I never thought I'd find a god artifact. This is a god artifact. A god artifact. The ancestor of the Mo clan was completely overjoyed, but he did not dare to show any of it at all. He extended his hands like nothing had happened and started to change between his seals. He had started to cast a secret technique to extract Jian Chen's soul. Ha 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 ha, Jian Chen has caught this young master's eye. None of you can harm him, or I'll have to be rude. At this moment, a voice rang out from behind everyone. A white-robed, handsome, and elegant young man walked into the stone hut. He smiled impudently as he held a fan. He made his way past all the over-gods leisurely, directly making his way towards Jian Chen. A burly man followed behind the young man closely like a loyal guard. The appearance of the young man immediately made the expressions of all the over-gods change. They had seen the young man and burly man from afar when they worked on smashing through the entrance to God King Duanmu's dwelling from the outside. They knew that the young man had a large background, and he was probably from some powerful clan or organization. As a result, they had turned a blind eye to his actions, ignoring them. The ancestor of the Mo family stopped. He turned towards the young man and his face sank slightly. "No, Jian Chen has taken away something that belongs to us. You're dreaming if you want us to hand him over. It's absolutely impossible unless Jian Chen gets his companion to hand over everything she has obtained," a late over-god stood forwards and said firmly. Even though the young man came from quite the background, the matter was connected to their interests. It had even related to whether they could become god kings or not. As a result, they stood forwards to object even though they feared the organization behind the young man slightly. Not to mention that there were several dozen over-gods gathered here. They represented the surrounding divine kingdoms and every single one of them wanted God King Duanmu's possessions, so they would naturally stand together. It's not up to you to decide that. I want to take Jian Chen away right now. If there are any of you who object, you really should stop me. The young man giggled as he played around with his fan. He was cocky, completely looking down on the over-gods. He directly arrived before Jian Chen and glanced at the unconscious Shenjian. He took out a storage treasure that was like a divine hall and put Shenjian away before lifting up Jian Chen with his arms. He made his way towards the entrance, completely ignoring the murderous gazes of the surrounding over-gods. "Stop, we won't let Jian Chen go. You won't be leaving here today," the late over-god who had spoken before stood in front of the young man and said with a sunken face. "Yeah, we're not letting you take Jian Chen. You're not going to be leaving today. Hand over Jian Chen." Several other over-gods stood forwards after the late over-god objected. They blocked the young man's path together as cold lights flickered in their eyes. "How dare you!" The burly man behind the young man bellowed out at this moment and directly waved his hand towards the over-gods. Immediately, a terrifying gale came whistling directly towards the over-gods. The gale did not give off any pressure or presence at all, but the over-gods were completely unable to resist when it approached them. They were swept far away like leaves. Chapter 1760. Tong Tian. The overgods were unable to put up a fight at all before the gale. Even the late overgod was as insignificant as an ant before it. No matter how they struggled, no matter how they resisted, it was all futile. In the end, the gale directly pushed them out of the space, and the overgods disappeared before all their eyes. Immediately, silence descended. The eyes of all the other overgods widened as they stared at the man behind the young man with a fan in shock. Their hearts churned. Even the ancestor of the Mo family who had taken the damaged god artifact from Jian Chen became stunned. He was frightened, and he was secretly relieved that he was not the one who had stood forward to stop the young man. The overgods had been blown away from just a flick of the hand. There was even a late overgod among them. That was simply too terrifying. God King, he must be a God King. Only before God Kings are late overgods so puny. Even several overgods cannot resist a simple wave of his hand. Probably even the person ranked first on the overgods plaque can't achieve that. He's a God King. He's a God King for sure. Heavens, he actually has the protection of a God King. Just how terrifying is that young man's background? Everyone's gazes towards the young man, and the burly man underwent an overwhelming change. Before, they only feared the young man slightly, but now, they felt dread. It was a sense of dread that they had never experienced before. The young man kept walking, directly making his way out with the injured Jian Chen. He did not become surprised or startled by how Uncle Qin had blown away several overgods with a flick of his hand, as if he had been expecting that. I'm going to be leaving, everyone. If you still want Jian Chen, you must come quickly, seniors. The young man smiled cheekily as he glanced past everyone's faces slowly. None of the overgods dared to utter a single word. Instead, they quickly formed a path as the young man advanced, unwilling to stop him at all. They did not dare to show any displeasure on their faces, as well as they were afraid of making the young man unhappy. Naturally, the young man left easily with Jian Chen. Even though the overgods objected to this, they could do nothing about it. The soul still hasn't come out. Everyone guard here. Once the soul comes out, immediately destroy her. She won't be able to take away anything like that anyway, an early overgod said suddenly after the young man's departure. The eyes of the overgods in the surroundings immediately lit up. They watched over the place as they attacked the power of laws together to waste it away faster. However, not everyone stayed. A few of the injured overgods knew that they probably would not benefit if they stayed, so they left without a second thought. The ancestor of the Mo family did not remain either. He left the dwelling. He had already obtained a damaged god artifact and was satisfied with what he had gained. He no longer wanted to take part in the upcoming fight. At this moment, Fairy Haoyu's illusionary body hovered above God King Duanmu's remains within the region protected by the power of laws. There was an incomplete golden core of laws in God King Duanmu's head. Strands of energy radiated from it, pouring endlessly towards Fairy Haoyu's soul like small streams, allowing her soul to grow at a terrifying pace. There was still some of the God King's former power left in his remains that had not completely dispersed after so many years. Fairy Haoyu was devouring it rapidly. A space ring hovered in the air as well. The space ring was the one on God King Duanmu's finger. At this moment, meter cubes of divine crystals hovered out as the energy within turned into a rapid stream that was all absorbed by Fairy Haoyu. The divine crystals were all pure and without any contaminants. To no surprise, they were all of the supreme grade, making them even more valuable than high-grade divine crystals. Fairy Haoyu was using the remaining possessions of God King Duanmu to recover her strength and body. Jian Chen gradually regained consciousness after some time. When he opened his eyes, all he saw was a deep, blue sky and white clouds. You actually woke up so soon. I thought it'll take you a day or two at the very least, but I never thought you'd wake up in just 4 hours. A surprised voice rang out from beside him as Jian Chen was still in a daze. He heard it clearly. Jian looked over and found a young man in white robes sitting nearby with one leg atop the other. He smiled impudently as he stared at Jian with interest. Near the young man stood a burly man with his back towards Jian. He was seated on the floor. Jian quickly observed his surroundings and found that he was among a mountain range. The fierce gale in the surroundings buffeted his hair and clothes. "What is this place? And who are you?" Jian asked as he tried to move. He tried to stand up, but tremendous pain filled his body, causing him to furrow his brows. He was grievously injured. He had not recovered, so any movement would affect his wounds. The young man sank into his thoughts. He looked around and said with uncertainty, "This is the divine kingdom of 9 stars, I think. I can't really remember." As for who I am, the young man suddenly smiled resplendently. He slowly stood up and arrived before Jian while fluttering his fan. He sat down beside Jian and smiled, "I am your savior. If I had not stepped in and saved your life, your soul would have been extracted by that I forgot his name, but that overgod from some Mo family in the divine kingdom of Qingyang. You definitely would have suffered a fate worse than death. Thank you for saving my life, sir. I will never forget your kindness," Jian said to the young man. However, he firmly remembered the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang. Jian really could not accept it if he had really tried to extract his soul and make him suffer a fate even worse than death. "My name is not Sir. Jian, listen up. My name is Tong Tian. The character Tong from Tong Tian, and the character Tian from Tong Tian. What do you think about it? Isn't it awesome?" The young man said proudly with his chest held high. He was pleased with himself. "It really is awesome. Thank you for saving me, young Master Tong Tian," said Jian. From their short conversation, he could tell that Tong Tian was probably from a large clan. He possessed a natural sense of pride and cockiness, but he did not seem to possess a bad character. Tong Tian chuckled and said, "Jian, you're extremely heavily injured, so you probably won't be able to recover in a short amount of time. I like you, so I'll help you out." As he said that, a black pill silently appeared in his hand. He glanced at the Uncle Qin behind him in guilt before quickly feeding Jian the pill. Uncle Qin's face twitched unnaturally. He turned towards Tong Tian and said with a darkened face, "Young master, how did you steal Elder Gu's 9 refined life-giving pill?" Chapter 1761, The Empyrean Demon Cult, 1. Although Uncle Qin had his back towards them as he rested, his cultivation was remarkable. Even with his eyes closed, Tong Tian was unable to hide his actions from the former. Tong Tian was surprised inside, and he became even more guilt-ridden. However, he showed none of it on his face and remained composed. He fluttered his fan, "Uncle Qin, you're mistaken. It's not like Elder Gu is the only one who can refine the 9 refined life-giving pill. There are plenty of Grandmaster alchemists in the saints' world who can refine them. It's not like it's impossible for me to get some of them with my identity. And, it's not like you don't know about the power of the formations around Elder Gu's pill room. How is it possible for me to get in there with my strength?" Uncle Qin shook his head helplessly as he listened to Tong Tian's serious analysis. Tong Tian's words were completely true, but Uncle Qin understood that the young master before him probably really did use some method he did not know to infiltrate Elder Gu's pill room and steal quite a lot of pills. Jian expression became rather strange as he listened to the two of them talk. He had realized that the pill that Tong Tian had fed him was probably stolen from his own clan. However, Jian's face changed slightly at this moment. In the next moment, a gentle light began to radiate from him. It enveloped him completely in a single instance. He seemed to have become a huge cocoon as a sweet, medicinal fragrance appeared. Just a single breath of it filled him with an extremely great feeling as if the fragrance had cleansed all the impurities within his body. Jian's wounds actually healed at an unbelievable rate within the white light. He healed so quickly that even Jian's expression changed, becoming greatly shocked. In under a minute, the white light around Jianchen receded and revealed him. However, his complexion had returned to its previous state and he had made a complete recovery as well. What a powerful pill. It's countless times more powerful than any healing pills I've ever seen. Jianchen could not help but sigh in amazement. He understood just how severe his wounds were. Even if he used the chaotic body and radiant saint force, he would need a day at the very least to recover completely, and that was already an astonishing speed. However, the 9 refined life-giving pill had used less than a minute to heal him completely. Jianchen rarely consumed pills when he was injured in the past, as the effects of pills would basically be negligible. They would be nowhere near as quick as his chaotic body. However, the 9 refined life-giving pill was more than 100 times more powerful than his chaotic body. Tong Tian said rather proudly when he heard Jianchen's praise, "Of course. Why don't you have a look at what the pill is? It's a 9 refined life-giving pill. I expended a tremendous amount of effort to get my hands on them, and even with that, I only managed to get 3. If it were not for the fact that I took a liking to you when I first saw you, I would have never given you it." Jianchen stood up and thanked Tong Tian again. Then he said, "Young Master Tong Tian, my friend is still in God King Duanmu's dwelling. She is in constant danger, so I must hurry back immediately. Please forgive my rudeness." "Jianchen, there are several dozen overgods in the dwelling. Are you sure that you can save your friend?" Tong Tian said steadily. Jianchen became rather stern. "If I have enough time, I do have some confidence in achieving that." Jianchen thought of the small high-grade divine crystal mine in the Dong'an province. With his current strength, he could hold his ground against all the powerful clans in the Dong'an province. It would be extremely easy for him to take over the mine. As long as he used the mine to reach the 10th layer of the chaotic body, his battle prowess would definitely skyrocket. He was confident that he could deal with mid-overgods with the power of his chaotic body. Even if he could not defeat late overgods, he could hold his ground against them. Qin Zhen walked over and looked at Jianchen in admiration. He said, "You should be talking about that soul, right? You don't have to worry about that. Your friend is far more complicated than she seems. She's a peak expert that has already reached infinite prime. She's currently using Duanmu's possessions to recover, so those overgods won't be able to threaten her." Jianchen finally let out a breath of relief when he heard that. However, he was shocked when he learned about Fairy Hao Yu's strength. She was actually an infinite prime. However, Jianchen seemed to notice something soon afterwards. He stared at Qin Zhen in shock. Qin Zhen could actually tell Fairy Hao Yu's past strength? And he knew that she was using God King Duanmu's possessions to recover? Could he see through the layer of power that protected God King Duanmu's remains? "Jianchen, since your friend is safe, there's no need for you to leave in such a hurry. Come, drink with me," laughed Tong Tian. With a wave of his hand, a table full of delicacies appeared again, and he said proudly, "I carry many delicacies with me at all times. It's enough for us to feast on for a few hundred years. These are all precious in the world. Jianchen, sit, let's talk and eat." Jianchen hesitated slightly when he saw the table full of dishes. He did not want to decline, so he just sat down and began talking with Tong Tian. "Brother Jianchen, that armor you wore seems to have been taken away by the overgod from that Mo clan or something. Don't you plan on retrieving it?" Tong Tian asked. He sat with one leg crossed over the other like a fool. A cold light flickered through Jianchen's eyes, and he said, "My armor is not so easy to take away. I will personally pay a visit to the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang before long. The Mo family is nothing good. I find them displeasing to the eye as well. When you visit the Mo family, please don't forget to call me. I'll cover you," Tong Tian said confidently. Even though he was only a mid-god, he completely looked down on the Mo family. "Thank you, Brother Tong Tian, but I should be enough to deal with the Mo family." Jianchen clasped his hands in response. Then he thought of something and asked, "Brother Tong Tian, may I ask who obtained God King Duanmu's flying sword in the end?" Jian Chen stared at Tong Tian in much interest. Now that he had lost the flying snow sword, he was in search of a sword of higher quality. That golden flying sword seems to have been taken away by an old man who also comprehended the laws of the sword. Though I have to say, that old man really is brave. He's actually willing to become enemies with the Empyrean demon cult. There are not many organizations who are willing to provoke them even with the entire cloud plain in perspective. That old man really is wet behind the ears. He has no idea about the power that the Empyrean demon cult possesses. Tong Tian became rather stern when he mentioned the Empyrean demon cult. The Empyrean demon cult? Jian Chen was slightly surprised. This was the second time he had heard about the Empyrean demon cult, so he could not help but become curiously. He asked, "Brother Tong Tian, can you tell me about the Empyrean demon cult?" Chapter 1762, The Empyrean Demon Cult, 2. Tong Tian stopped appearing impudent and became stern. His current expression made him seem like a completely different person from before. He said solemnly, "I don't know a lot about the Empyrean demon cult either. I only know that they were founded in the recent million years. When they were first founded, they were extremely weak, but the speed at which they developed was extremely shocking. In just 1 million years, they became a famed organization even with the entire cloud plain in perspective. Very few people are bold enough to provoke them, and even my clan fears them slightly. As long as we don't get into too great of a conflict of interest, we're unwilling to offend them. The Empyrean demon cult is actually so powerful. Doesn't that mean Ling Hogong, who obtained the flying sword from God King Duanmu, is in big trouble?" Jian Chen frowned as he secretly felt worried for Ling Hogong. "Oh right. Brother Tong Tian, may I ask what strength the vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult, Huayan, possesses? As well as the strength of the Empyrean demon cult's leader?" Jian Chen asked. "I only know that all the vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult are at the primordial realm. I don't know any more than that, but Uncle Qin knows more than me." Tong Tian looked towards Qin Zheng. Qin Zheng did not ignore Jian Chen's question. After a moment of silence, he said, "The Empyrean demon cult on the cloud plain is only one of the many branches. There are branches of the Empyrean demon cult on other planes and even a few on the larger planets. I must say that the person who founded the cult is impressive. He possesses extremely great ability. In just 1 million years, against pressure and threats from everywhere, he managed to develop the Empyrean demon cult to its current size." Qin Zheng paused there. On the other hand, Jian Chen paid full attention to his words, unwilling to miss a single word. After all, this was a rare chance for him to understand the Empyrean demon cult. It was even possible that it would be very difficult for him to buy the information that he could learn from Qin Zheng because it might be information that could only be obtained at a similar strength. Qin Zheng continued, "On the cloud plane, the Empyrean demon cult has a total of 3 vice leaders. They're all infinity primes. The Huayan you speak of is an early infinity prime, just like the other 2. As for the leader, since the Empyrean demon cult was founded, no one has ever heard of the existence of a leader, as if there is no leader in the Empyrean demon cult." "What? The Empyrean demon cult has no leader? Only vice leaders?" Jian Chen was astonished. He found it to be extremely surprising. "I don't know whether the Empyrean demon cult has a leader or not, but no one has ever heard of one across all these years. There's only a great elder. The Great Elder is the person who's actually in control of the Empyrean demon cult as well," Qin Zheng said rather grimly. He became extremely stern when he mentioned the Great Elder as deep fear filled his eyes. "A Great Elder?" Jian Chen murmured. Without even thinking anymore, he understood that the Great Elder was a peak expert. Although the branch on the cloud plane has 3 infinite primes and is quite strong, they've never garnered the attention of the few powerful organizations on the cloud plane. What the organizations really fear is the mysterious Great Elder behind the Empyrean demon cult. It is exactly because of his existence that the powerful organizations fear the Empyrean demon cult slightly and are unwilling to provoke them over trivial matters. "Uncle Qin, is the Great Elder really that powerful?" To the point where he supports the entire organization by himself, making so many powerful organizations fear him. This time, even Tong Tian was shocked. He clearly did not know about this. Qin Zheng nodded. The Great Elder is indeed extremely powerful. The reason why the Empyrean Demon Cult is ranked as one of the most powerful organizations on the Cloud Plane is all because of the Great Elder. It's just that the Great Elder is extremely mysterious. Very few people have seen him personally. It's said that ever since the cult was founded, the Great Elder has only stepped in a total of 3 times. The first time was at the U-Plane. The Empyrean Demon Cult had offended a powerful organization on the U-Plane back then, and the organization had launched devastating attacks towards them, drawing in the Great Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult. The Great Elder directly killed his way into the organization's sect. In the end, neither of their 2 chaotic primes managed to escape. They were killed off completely. From then on, the organization vanished from the U-Plane. The second time was on planet Tianming of the 81 greater planets. The planet lord had destroyed the branch of the Empyrean Demon Cult on the planet, so the Great Elder and the planet lord engaged in a great fight in outer space. In the end, the Great Elder killed the planet lord. Even Qin Zheng was no longer able to remain composed when he reached there. His expression changed, and he sighed gently. The planet lord was a grand prime, yet he actually died at the hands of the Great Elder. The expressions of both Jian Chen and Tong Tian changed when they heard that. The Great Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult was just too terrifying. Even Grand Primes had died at his hands. Grand Primes were experts who had arrived at the apex of the Saints' world, approaching the end of cultivation. They were equivalent to immortal exalts in the Immortals world. The Inata Grand Prime, Nirvanic Immortal Exalt, and the Old Master of the Sword Spirits had reached that level. What about the third time? Tong Tian asked eagerly. Qin Zheng's emotions became mixed. He said, the third time happened 100,000 years ago. The Great Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult began fighting a Hall Elder of the God Clan from the God Swirl Plane. The Hall Elder was also a Grand Prime. He was an early Grand Prime, but he comprehended the laws of destruction. He was so powerful that even the planet lord of planet Tianming was not his opponent. Qin Zhen did not continue after reaching there. What was the outcome? Did the Hall Elder of the God Clan win? Or was it the Great Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult? Jian Chen asked. He cared for the answer to this very much, as the God Clan on the God Swirl Plane was Tai Ta's clan. There was no outcome to this battle. It ended as an unsettled matter, replied Qin Zheng. Jian Chen and Tong Tian looked at each other. It had ended as an unsettled matter. Did that not mean that the Hall Elder was unable to deal with the Great Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult? It is exactly because the Great Elder of the Empyrean Demon Cult has fought 3 times that the status of the Empyrean Demon Cult has been consolidated in the Saints' world, so even on the Cloud Plane, there are no large organizations who would want to provoke them easily. Even if the Empyrean Demon Cult goes a little overboard on the Cloud Plane, the powerful organizations will just turn a blind eye to them as long as they don't get in their way. Chapter 1763, Invitation. Jian Chen fell silent. When he first heard about the Empyrean Demon Cult in the dwelling, he had already realized that they were an extremely powerful organization. However, he had never imagined them to actually be so powerful. In particular, the mysterious Great Elder who founded the cult single-handedly was so powerful that Jian Chen felt extremely shocked. He had even claimed the life of a Grand Prime. Jian Chen could only look up to such a powerful existence right now. Jian Chen began to worry for Ling Hogong even more. For God King Duanmu's flying sword, Ling Hogong had offended such a powerful organization. The Empyrean Demon Cult was so powerful that even if Ling Hogong became as powerful as God King Duanmu when he was still alive, he would not be able to fend them off at all. Although they were nothing like close friends, Ling Hogong's infatuation with the sword and moral character had garnered Jian Chen's admiration. He naturally did not want Ling Hogong to be murdered by the Empyrean Demon Cult. Qin Zheng stared at Jian Chen and seemed to be able to tell what Jian Chen was worrying about with a single glance. He said, "You don't have to worry too much. Ling Hogong has only offended one of the 3 vice leaders, Huayan, while there are 3 vice leaders in the branch on the Cloud Province. Huayan alone does not represent the entire Empyrean demon cult on the Cloud Plain. There's even less reason for you to worry about the mysterious Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. You'll only force him out if you destroy the entire Empyrean demon cult branch on the Cloud Plain. As a Great Elder, he naturally will not interfere with personal matters. Even without the terrifyingly powerful Great Elder, just the vice leader Huayan is an undefeatable existence to Ling Hogong." Jian Chen sighed gently. He could only pray for Ling Hogong right now. There was nothing else he could do. Tong Tian swiveled his eyes when he heard that. He said to Jian Chen, "If you really want to protect that old man who obtained God King Duanmu's sword, I do have an idea." "What's the idea?" Even though Jian Chen knew that Tong Tian would be up to no good from his smile, he still could not help but ask. Tong Tian sniggered and said, "It's very simple, and that's for you to join our Tong family. With your talent, the clan will definitely nurture you with everything they have once you join. You'll also obtain an extremely great status in the clan. As long as you join our Tong family, protecting your friend is a piece of cake." Qin Zheng also looked towards Jian Chen as he waited for the latter's reply. There was a sliver of eagerness in his nonchalant gaze. He felt extremely shocked by Jian Chen's talent, and he had completely witnessed Jian Chen's moral character. He was extremely content with him, so he naturally hoped that Jian Chen could join their Tong family very much. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. He did not answer the question and instead asked, "Isn't your Tong family afraid of the Empyrean demon cult?" "Naturally, our Tong family fears the Empyrean demon cult slightly, but what we fear are not the vice leaders but the Great Elder behind the entire cult." This time, the speaker was Qin Zheng, who stood to one side with his arms crossed. Qin Zheng looked at Jian Chen with shining eyes. He swore solemnly, "Jian Chen, if you join our clan, we will support you with everything we have. We'll give you various precious pills, cultivation methods, battle skills, and even precious heavenly resources. We will assist you with your growth. Even your friend who has offended the vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult can be protected by our clan." Jian Chen sank into his thoughts. Without a single doubt, Tong Tian's Tong family was one of the most powerful clans in the entire Cloud Plain. They did not even worry about the vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult who was an infinite prime. If he really did receive the full support of such a clan, breaking through with the chaotic body would become an extremely easy matter. This was because even in the Immortals world, all the ordinary chaotic bodies that reached major achievement had the support of large sects and clans, without a single exception. Very few people were able to progress the chaotic body to a powerful level alone. However, if he joined the Tong family, he would come across primordial realm experts. If he exposed the secret of the twin swords before them, it would be a devastating disaster. No one would be able to protect him. Jian Chen made up his mind very quickly after a moment of thought. He said to Qin Zheng and Tong Tian apologetically, "Thank you for your kind intentions, but I am used to moving freely and not being tied down. As a result, I don't plan on joining any organization for now. Moreover, the Saints' world is so large. I want to go see other places, so I won't be staying on the Cloud Plain for too long." Jian Chen's declination disappointed Qin Zheng and Tong Tian, but they recovered very soon. Tong Tian chuckled aloud and said without minding it, "It's no problem at all. Since Brother Jian Chen likes to move freely, I naturally won't trouble Brother Jian Chen. Brother Jian Chen, let's drink some more. It doesn't matter if you want to join our Tong family or not. I'm making you my friend." Tong Tian raised his cup and said generously. Jian Chen also raised his cup. He said, "If I become accomplished in cultivation in the future, feel free to ask me if there is anywhere I can be of use so that I can return the kindness you've shown today." As he said that, Jian Chen and Tong Tian clinked glasses and downed all the contents. Tong Tian tossed a token to Jian Chen and said, "That's a token for identification from me." "Brother Jian Chen, if you ever come across any problems you can't handle, just bring the token to the Tong family and come to look for me. As long as you don't provoke any primordial realm experts, I can settle any problems for you." At the same time, Tong Tian took out Shenjian. Shenjian was still unconscious right now, his injuries were very heavy. Jian Chen immediately put Shenjian away in the Bright Moon Divine Hall and fed him some healing pills. "Tong Tian, I'd like to see where you run. You can't run from me. Even if you leave the cloud plane, I can still find you." At this moment, a furious, feminine voice rang out from afar. A streak of red light flew over with lightning speed. From afar, it seemed like a comet. Tong Tian's hand immediately trembled when he heard that, and he spilled some alcohol from his cup. He became flustered as if he had encountered an extremely terrifying situation. He said, how did she get here? Didn't I end the engagement with her? Just how much does she hate me to chase me until I'm dead? Let's go. Let's go quick, Uncle Qin. Let's leave. We can't let her catch up. I can't defeat her right now." At that moment, Tong Tian had lost all his normal cockiness and confidence. A sliver of dread appeared as he stared at the red figure that flew over hurriedly. Seeing how frightened Tong Tian had become, Qin Zhen revealed a strange expression as well. He shook his head helplessly. He gazed at the approaching figure in the distance. With a wave of his hand, he vanished with Tong Tian. They seemed to have teleported. "Brother Jian Chen, I shall be leaving first. Let's meet some other time." As they left, Tong Tian's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. He left in a great hurry, so he had even left behind the table of delicacies. "Tong Tian, you bastard, stop. You can't run from me. I'll catch you no matter where you run off to. I'll skin you alive and carve you up when I catch you," the woman roared angrily from behind. She was utterly furious. Chapter 1764. The lady in red. Jian Chen could not help but shake his head when he saw how Tong Tian had basically fled in terror. He smiled bitterly. The feeling that Tong Tian gave him was that he seemed to fear nothing, yet he seemed to have encountered his crux just now. The lady hurrying over had actually frightened him to the point where he fled without even taking his delicacies with him, and he had also left behind the valuable table made from precious materials. Jian Chen could not help but look at the lady who shot over. He felt rather curious about her. Just what kind of person was she to scare Tong Tian away like that? The lady burned with fire under Jian Chen's gaze. She descended towards Jian Chen's location as she gave off a terrifying heat. She did not land and look down on him from above instead. She was an alluring beauty who only seemed to be in her 20s. Cold light flickered in her perfect eyes, while her longer face seemed like a painstakingly crafted sculpture. She possessed a natural type of beauty, where it was impossible to find any flaws. Her cherry lips were bright red. She was the type that people would slaver over and approach unconsciously. Without a single doubt, she was an alluring beauty. Her fire-red hair fluttered in the wind as she stood in the sky, while the fitting, red robes sculpted out a curvy figure. She also wore a pair of red shoes. As the fire burned around her, she seemed like a goddess of fire. "Who are you?" The lady did not pursue Tong Tian. Instead, she asked Jian Chen coldly in the face while her beautiful face darkened. Jian Chen stood on the ground. He did not mind the lady's tone at all. He smiled indifferently and said, "I'm Jian Chen, just a person not worth mentioning. May I ask for your name?" The lady's face remained just as cold as before. She glared at Jian Chen and said, "You have no right to learn who I am. I saw you with that bastard Tong Tian earlier. Tell me honestly, how are you related to him? I will never spare you if you hide even the slightest of details." Jian Chen's face remained the same as before. From Tong Tian's previous words, he already understood that the lady in red was probably engaged to Tong Tian, except Tong Tian broke off the engagement himself, which was why the lady had come hunting for him. "Young Master Tong Tian saved my life. He's a good friend of mine," replied Jian Chen. However, the lady's gaze turned cold when she heard that Jian Chen was a good friend of Tong Tian. She bellowed out, "Anyone who can become a good friend of that bastard is nothing good." With that, the lady launched a palm strike towards Jian Chen. As she struck out, the flames around her immediately surged, condensing into a huge palm of fire that squashed towards Jian Chen. Jian Chen frowned. The lady in red was very unreasonable. She was just flat out rude. With a thought, the laws of the sword in the surroundings immediately condensed into a giant sword chi that shot towards the palm of fire. The lady's palm of fire immediately dispersed with a boom, while Jian Chen's sword chi remained. It shone with dazzling white light. An over-god. The lady frowned as she stared at Jian Chen's sword chi. "Miss, haven't you gone overboard?" Jian Chen said calmly. The lady in red was a late god, so she really was stronger than Tong Tian. Jian Chen would have been better off without saying that. The lady immediately became furious again, and she cried out, "So what if I've gone overboard? Do you really think I fear you just because you're an over-god?" With that, the flames around the lady suddenly disappeared. The next moment, arcs of electricity revolved around her, and a sword that sparked with blue electricity appeared in her hand. Laws of lightning. Jian Chen was surprised. The laws of lightning were also known to be one of the laws with the greatest offense, together with the laws of the sword, the laws of destruction, and so on. Aside from the laws of fire, the lady in red had actually comprehended the laws of lightning as well. At this moment, the lady swung her sword as she charged towards Jian Chen. After using the laws of lightning, she clearly moved much faster. Her sword sparked as she sent bolts of lightning in Jian Chen's direction. Jian Chen condensed a strand of sword chi on his finger as he engaged in a battle with the lady. He moved calmly, but he became more and more surprised inside. He discovered that even though the lady was only a late god, there were barely any other late gods that would be her opponent. If his laws of the sword had not reached sword spirit, he probably would not have been the lady's opponent. Thunder. At this moment, the lady called out. She pointed her sword towards the sky as she gave off a strange presence, fusing with the world. The next moment, a bolt of lightning appeared from nothing. Coupled with a thunderous boom, it struck the lady's sparking sword with great accuracy, immediately causing it to shine with dazzling light. It flickered constantly, then she pointed the sword at Jian Chen. The lightning was redirected towards Jian Chen immediately. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He extended his finger calmly, and he sent out a powerful strand of sword chi to collide with the lightning. The clash immediately produced resplendent sparks. The sword chi and lightning actually dispersed together, with none of them gaining the upper hand. On the other hand, the mountain that Jian Chen stood on collapsed silently. What strength! Jian Chen could not help but sigh in amazement. The lady really was just too powerful. She was clearly only a late god, yet her battle prowess had already surpassed the limits of late god. Thunderfire strike. The lady called out. This time, the laws of fire and lightning revolved around her. They formed two chains that shot towards Jian Chen as they revolved around each other. Jian Chen became slightly stern. He felt like he was facing an over-god from her attack. The lady's thunderfire strike neared the might of an early over-god. Jian Chen formed a seal and a golden strand of sword chi condensed. It shot off as a golden streak of light, colliding with the chains formed from the laws of lightning and fire. Boom! The two chains dispersed at the same time, while Jian Chen's golden sword chi continued onwards just like before. It shot towards the lady, except it was slightly dimmer than before. The golden sword chi simply moved too quickly. It had basically arrived before the lady in a single moment after smashing through her chains. The woman's expression remained the same. Suddenly, a fire-red armor appeared, enveloping her entire body. The sword chi struck the armor and knocked the lady far away. Her face paled slightly, but she did not become injured at all. Chapter 1765, hearing about the cult again, impressive armor. Jian Shen could not help but praise as he stared at the lady's armor. He could tell with a single glance that the armor was a defensive treasure of a very high grade. Even the overgods who had entered God King Duanmu's dwelling did not possess something like that. The lady was skilled in 2 laws, and her battle prowess was so powerful. She was definitely a prodigy. Coupled with how she was bold enough to hunt down Tong Tian in such a fashion, everything pointed to the fact that she had quite the background. Jian Shen had learnt long ago that in both the saints' world and the immortals' world, a few large sects or clans had some prodigies. Any person who could become a prodigy possessed extraordinary talent. Coupled with the full support of their clan or sect, every single prodigy would basically possess extremely great battle prowess. There would barely be anyone who was their opponent at a similar cultivation level, allowing them to hold the title of being invincible among the same level. Many prodigies even possessed the power to challenge those stronger than them. Killing regular experts at a higher cultivation level was not impossible for them. To no surprise, the lady in red was a prodigy. She was clearly only a late god, yet she possessed the battle prowess of an early overgod to a certain degree. Even though it was just barely, it was still impressive enough. The lady in red's eyes burned with anger. She became even more furious when she heard Jian Shen praise her armor because this was a naked provocation in her eyes. She felt like he was telling her that she would have become heavily injured if it were not for the armor's protection. "I'll remember you. Let's just wait and see. Next time, no one will be able to save you," the lady said coldly. She knew that she was not Jian Shen's opponent. She became enveloped in flames and left without even looking back. She gnashed her teeth. "Tong Tian, you bastard, do you think you can avoid me just because you're with someone else? Humph, let alone the cloud plane, even if you escape beyond here, I can still find you. I swear, once I catch you, I'll skin you alive." Jian Shen watched the lady in red leave. He secretly shook his head. No wonder Tong Tian broke off the marriage on his own accord. The lady in red was an alluring beauty. However, her temper was horrible, yet she just happened to be so powerful. Whoever married her would suffer misfortune. Afterwards, Jian Shen rose up in the sky and left the place. After a period of flying, he found a city and spent some divine crystals to purchase a map. He found his location and immediately frowned. He was currently near the boundary of the Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars and Divine Kingdom of 3 Cauldrons. The Divine Kingdom of Pingtian was on the other side of the Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars. If he wanted to return, he basically had to cross the entire Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars. The Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars was extremely vast. Even if he traveled in a straight line, it would be several billion kilometers. Looks like just the travel time will be close to a month for me to get back to the Dong'an province. Tong Tian's Uncle Qin is just too terrifying. I was only unconscious for 6 hours, yet he brought me here from God King Duanmu's dwelling. Jian Shen smiled bitterly. He felt very helpless. The distance they had traveled in less than 4 hours would take him close to a month to cover. A streak of white light suddenly flashed through the skies in the Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars at an altitude of several tens of thousand meters. It was like a bolt of light, moving through the air with unbelievable speed. It crossed an entire region in a single moment, disappearing into the horizon. The bolt of lightning dimmed after a flash in the distance, revealing a young man in white robes. The surroundings of the young man glimmered with light. He used the speed from the lightning to cover distance quickly. The young man was Jian Shen, who had to travel through the entire Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars. It's quite effective to travel using the linear lightning release. I can cover such a great distance in a single moment. If I keep at it, the amount of time I'll need to return to the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian will lessen by quite a lot, Jian Shen murmured as he revealed some exhaustion. He could not keep using the linear lightning release, or he would not be able to endure the exhaustion. His journey through the Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars was not as smooth as he imagined it would be. Not only did he come across bandits that blocked the way, but he also had to fight powerful birds and beasts. It was very difficult to ensure a safe journey without strength at God. In particular, some birds and beasts possessed impressive intelligence despite being unable to assume a human form. They moved in groups, where even gods would flee in terror if they came across them. Probably only overgods could cross an entire divine kingdom smoothly. At this moment, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He gazed at the large group of people that had suddenly appeared in the sky in the distance. They could be as powerful as gods or as weak as Origin Realm cultivators. They were a dense group, enough to blot out the sun. From afar, they seemed like a huge, black cloud moving through the sky, hurrying towards the depths of the divine kingdom of 9 stars. That's several tens of million at the very least, or even over 100 million. Has something happened that has displaced them all? Just how many people are moving? Jian Chen was curious. He immediately changed his direction and flew over. Brother, may I ask what has happened? Jian Chen stopped a middle-aged male deity and asked. The middle-aged man was dejected and in horrible spirits. He raised his head and glanced at Jian Chen before he ignored Jian Chen and directly continued on his way. Jian Chen was surprised, but he did not mind too much. He glanced past the group and stopped amid God. He vaguely radiated with the pressure of sword spirit and asked the same question. The early god's face immediately changed when he sensed the shocking pressure from Jian Chen. He replied politely, Senior, we're all people of the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. The 9th army of the Empyrean demon cult is attacking the divine kingdom right now, and wherever the 9th army moves through, all lives will be lost. The divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons can no longer hold their ground and will be destroyed soon. We've all fled to the divine kingdom of 9 stars in hopes of avoiding this crisis. It's the Empyrean demon cult again. Jian Chen frowned as he felt an ill omen. The Empyrean demon cult had already invaded the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. They were extremely close to the divine kingdom of Pingtian now. However, Jian Chen became doubtful soon afterwards. The Empyrean demon cult was such a powerful organization, so why would they attack the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons? He had heard of the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. It was a divine kingdom on the same level as the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Their strongest experts were only god kings, so logically speaking, an organization controlled by a god king should not have caught the Empyrean demon cult's attention. Once he reached the 10th layer of the chaotic body, he would be able to last a while even before late overgods with the toughness of the chaotic body. The powerful clans of the Dong'an province had taken over the Dark Cloud Mountains. There were over a dozen of them in total. They had all sent people there to mine the high-grade divine crystals, and even the ancestors from their clans watched over the operation. At this moment, 2 old men sat on a flat mountain top as they played chess and conversed. 2 young women stood beside them, pouring tea for them courteously. From how carefully they behaved, they seemed to be afraid of spilling even a drop of tea. The disturbance from God King Duanmu's dwelling has already lasted for several years. I really wonder when it'll end, a gray-robed old man sighed gently. Before the gray-robed old man sat another old man in white robes. The white-robed old man played a move and gazed at the chessboard as he said leisurely, It's said that a soul has already approached God King Duanmu's remains. The disturbance the dwelling caused is coming to an end. It'll end soon, in my opinion. The dwelling appeared in our Dong'an province, but it's just a pity that no one in the Dong'an province was able to benefit from it. Those overgods took it all away. We gods don't even have the chance to take part or fight over anything, the gray-robed old man said regretfully. The white-robed old man chuckled, being unable to take part is also good. Look at how many of the experts who took part died. The Wainer clan lost half of their gods, while the other clans of the Dong'an province lost a few gods as well. Even overgods died in the depths of the dwelling. They've failed to obtain any treasure and lost their lives instead. In my opinion, it's just not worth it. I heard that people of the Mo clan and Ando clan entered the dwelling first. Do you think they managed to benefit? The gray-robed old man asked out of interest. The white-robed old man shook his head without any hesitation. He said firmly, "Do you think they survived? Those overgods aren't benevolent people." "Fair enough. There's probably not a single member of the Mo clan and Ando clan that remains. The overgods would never let them go regardless of what they found." The gray-robed old man nodded. It made sense. The two old men were specially stationed here from the powerful clans of the Dong'an province. They served as a deterrence against any thieves, and they also acted as supervisors. As the two old men played chess leisurely and spoke about the situation of God King Duanmu's dwelling with interest, a white-robed young man appeared there silently. The young man did not give off any presence, making him seem just like an ordinary person. The two early gods had actually failed to sense his approach. Only when he arrived beside the chessboard did the two old men discover him suddenly. They became surprised. "Who are you?" The two old men leapt to their feet and stared at Jianchen cautiously. They were filled with shock. The young man definitely possessed strength much greater than theirs if he could approach them so silently. "Who I am is not important. What is important is that this mine belongs to me from now onwards," the young man said calmly. As expected, he was Jianchen. The expressions of the two old men changed when they heard that Jianchen wanted the mine. The gray-robed old man said coldly, "This mine belongs to the entire Dong'an province." "Sir, do you plan on becoming enemies with the entire province?" "I've never planned on that, but I don't mind either if the entire Dong'an province wants to become my enemy. Moreover, the mine never belonged to the Dong'an province in the first place. It belonged to the Lu family. You only forcefully took it over from them," said Jianchen. He was helpless against the powerful clans of the Dong'an province when he first entered God King Duanmu's dwelling, so he could only watch as they took over the mine. However, did it really matter even if the entire Dong'an province became his enemy now? Chapter 1767, The 10th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 1. The hearts of the two old men immediately sank when they saw how Jianchen showed no fear when they mentioned the entire Dong'an province. They could sense that this was a horrible situation. Especially when Jianchen described the Dong'an province like it was nothing, the two old men seemed to realize that the mine had probably drawn in an extremely powerful adversary. The faces of the two old men darkened. They looked at each other. Soon afterwards, a sliver of determination flashed through the eyes of the gray-robed old man. He sneered towards Jianchen, "Defeat the two of us first if you want to take the mine." As he said that, a black sword appeared in his hand. He wielded the sword and immediately sent out streaks of darkness. As the darkness expanded, it blotted out the sun, causing the world to descend into darkness. Jianchen was undeterred. He stood where he was, remaining as still as a mountain. He did not even become surprised, as if the darkness around him was nothing. Extending a finger, a strand of sword chi shot out with dazzling light. At the same time, a terrifying sword intent that was enough to cause the two early gods to pale permeated the surroundings. Boom! All the darkness in the surroundings immediately dispersed while the gray-robed old man vomited blood. He was blown away like a broken kite. He became haggard, no heavily injured. The white-robed old man's face changed at the sight of this. He immediately flew over to stop the gray-robed old man. However, when his hand came in contact with his back, the white-robed old man's face suddenly changed again. He only sensed an extremely powerful and sharp sword chi emerge suddenly, making his hand ache. His hand had been reduced to a bloody mess. The white-robed old man was astounded. He stared at Jianchen in utter shock. The young man before him was just too terrifying. Just the slight movement of a finger possessed such unbelievable force. No one in the Dong'an province could achieve that with just a single finger. This strength has completely exceeded late god. Is this young man an overgod? The white-robed old man realized in surprise. His heart immediately leapt in fright when he reached this conclusion. Without any hesitation, he fled with the gray-robed old man and also sent a message to all the people in the mine to leave as quickly as possible. Gods were equivalent to the ancestors of powerful clans in the Dong'an province. No one doubted people like that. All the miners immediately fled as quickly as possible when they received the message. An over-god has come to take over this mine. Everyone run. Flee, an over-god wants to kill us. If we don't run, we'll die. We'll be stuck here for all of eternity if we're a little slow. Immediately, panic-stricken cries rang out everywhere. The miners had all paled in fright as they fled even faster for their lives. Jian Shinkami watched on from the top of the mountain. He did not stop them. Only when all the miners had fled did he reach the bottom of the mine gently. With a wave of his hand, the bright moon divine hall landed on the ground heavily with a thud. As the door to the divine hall slowly opened, Shenjian emerged wearing black robes. Shenjian had mostly healed up while Jian Shen was making his way back to the divine kingdom of Pingtian from the divine kingdom of 9 stars. However, due to the heavy price he paid by consuming the fire cloud pill, his complexion was still sickly pale. Clearly, he had not completely recovered. Jian Shen could not help but praise the power of the 9 refined life-giving pill again when he saw how Shenjian still had not fully recovered. He had also consumed the fire cloud pill and was supposed to pay the same price. He was supposed to be sapped as well, but not only had he healed from his wounds after consuming Tong Tian's pill, he had even recovered all of his vitality. Shenjian, are you fine? Jian Shen asked Shenjian in concern. Shenjian looked around nonchalantly and said, cultivate without worry. Breakthrough in the shortest amount of time possible. Leave the problem of safety to me. However, once over-gods appear personally, you'll have to deal with them yourself. Jian Shen clasped his fist towards Shenjian. After putting the divine hall away, he directly made his way towards the very depths of the mine. Jian Shen sat down in the depths of the mine and began to practice his cultivation method. The origin energy in the surroundings immediately surged over, forming wisps of mist that revolved around Jian Shen. Jian Shen seemed to become a bottomless hole as he devoured the pure origin energy in the surroundings rapidly. As he absorbed the energy, the high-grade divine crystals hidden within the rock immediately dulled, being reduced to simple stone. Jian Shen urgently needed to increase his strength. Even if it were simply too wasteful for him to cultivate using high-grade divine crystals, he had no other choice. Shenjian sat down on the top of a mountain outside. He observed the abnormal movements of energy in the depths of the mine, and his face immediately changed. The cultivation method that Jian Shen practices really is impressive. It actually allows him to absorb origin energy so quickly, and he can even absorb the origin energy of the entire mine. This high-grade divine crystal mine is the lifeblood of those powerful clans in the Dong'an province. They'll never give up on it so easily. I wonder what they're going to do. As Jian Shen absorbed the high-grade divine crystals, the 2 supervising gods made their way back to the provincial city as quickly as well. They told all the powerful clans in the city about what had happened in the Dark Cloud Mountains without hiding any details at all. All the clans immediately became angered when they heard how the Dark Cloud Mountains had been taken away. The ancestors of over 10 powerful clans gathered together as they discussed how they were supposed to handle the situation with darkened faces. The powerful clans had begun to treat the mine in the Dark Cloud Mountains as their lifeblood long ago. This was because the mine was directly connected to the future developments and hopes of their clans. It was extremely important. By Ziki, is that true? Was the person who took over the mountain range really an over-god? A red-robed middle-aged man asked in a firm voice. The white-robed old man did not dare to hesitate at all. He immediately stood up and answered, I couldn't see through his strength, but he defeated the 2 of us with a casual strike. That strength that has exceeded late god, so he must be an over-god. He also comprehended the laws of the sword. The red-robed middle-aged man was a late god, and he seemed to be close to becoming an over-god. He was one of the ancestors of the 3 most powerful clans in the Dong'an province, the Hua family. He comprehended the laws of fire. An over-god who has comprehended the laws of the sword? Are you talking about Ling Ho Gong from the sword-seeking province? The middle-aged man became extremely stern. Chapter 1768, The 10th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 2. I've seen Ling Hogong before. He's not Ling Hogong. He doesn't even seem like a person from our divine kingdom of Pingtian, as aside from Ling Hogong, we don't have any other overgod who has also comprehended the laws of the sword, the white-robed old man said firmly. By Ziki, do you remember his appearance? This time, the person who spoke was an old man with a regular appearance. The presence he gave off had also reached late god. The white-robed old man nodded. He extended a finger and began to draw in the empty air. Using origin energy, he drew an image of Jian Chen very soon. I've never seen this person before. Even though I haven't seen all the overgods of our kingdom before, I've heard of a few of them, and there's definitely not a person like that. This person isn't from our divine kingdom of Pingtian, looks like this person came from another divine kingdom, The overgods of other divine kingdoms actually wants to come here and throw their weight around. Do they really think that we don't have overgods in our divine kingdom? Aside from the god who came from the Weiner clan, all the other gods expressed how they had never seen Jian Chen before. Their voices were filled with fury. Clearly, these people had not entered God King Duanmu's dwelling. Even if they did go in, they had not met Jian Chen. Only the god from the Weiner clan had lost his calm. He cried out inside, how is this possible? How? How is he still alive? He actually made it out of God King Duanmu's dwelling alive? He wasn't this powerful a few years ago either. How did he become an overgod now? Do I tell them about Jian Chen? The early god from the Weiner clan hesitated. However, his face darkened soon afterwards, and he thought, the jades bound to the lives of our two mid-gods shattered. They've clearly fallen in God King Duanmu's dwelling. Now that the Weiner clan only has two early gods, it's already impossible for us to maintain a stable footing in the provincial city any longer. We'll probably have to leave the provincial city once the public finds out about the deaths of Weiner T and Weiner Sr., whatever. It's not like our Weiner clan can obtain the mine now. Let's not take part in this matter. Since that person called Jian Chen made it out of God King Duanmu's dwelling alive, where even overgods were unable to handle him, it's best if our Weiner clan doesn't try to offend them anymore, just in case it draws in a disaster. As for God King Duanmu's jade, sigh. It's all because I treated the matter with too much simplicity. The early god of the Weiner clan left in dejection. He did not reveal any information regarding Jian Chen. Only the Weiner clan possessed some information about Jian Chen in the entire provincial city. Naturally, the other powerful clans had no idea if he did not mention it. Please do not worry, everyone. I have some connections with overgod Bing Lu from the Yubing clan of the Frigid Snow province. I'll ask him to come over immediately and set things straight for us, said the old man who had questioned by Z earlier. Cold light shone in his eyes. Clearly, he had been angered as well. The old man was from the Nanyan clan, and he was one of the three most powerful people in the Dong'an province along with the middle-aged man in red robes. The gods of the Dong'an province all beamed when they heard that. Overgod Bing Lu was a famed expert. It was said that he had reached the peak of early overgod and was only a step away from mid-overgod. Swish! With a gentle, almost undetectable breeze, the late god from the Nanyan clan left the place as he hurried off to the Frigid Snow province. The Frigid Snow province was covered in snow and ice all year round. Its climate was extremely frigid. It was a world of ice. No matter how harshly the burning sun shone, it was unable to melt the world. There was an extremely ancient legend about the Frigid Snow province. It was said that before the divine kingdom of Pingtian had been founded, a supreme primordial realm expert had come and a droplet of his frigid blood had fallen on the land, creating this special environment. It was said that the changes here had attracted many famous experts in the region. Even god kings had hurried over from afar to investigate the place, but they found nothing in the end. As time went on, the Frigid Snow province lost its mystique and faded out of public view. In the end, it became a part of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The frigid snow province had now become the world of the Yubing clan, as they possessed an overgod. It was exactly because of their overgod that the Yubing clan was able to reign supreme in the entire province. An old man had appeared outside the entrance of the Yubing clan. He was the ancestor of the Nanyan clan who had hurried over from the Dong'an province. The ancestor of the Nanyan clan maintained an extremely low profile after his arrival. With a flip of his hand, an ancient jade appeared in his hand. Just as he took the jade to a guard, a white-robed child happened to walk out. The child was not old, only 6 or 7 years of age. He was only at sainthood as well, but the eyes of the guards at the entrance of the Yubing clan narrowed with his appearance. Their gazes towards the child became polite. This was because they recognized the child. Although he was not powerful, he served the ancestor of the clan, Bing Lu. The child directly arrived before the ancestor of the Nanyan clan and clasped his fist towards him. "Senior, the ancestor invites you inside. Please come in with me." The old man from the Nanyan clan was clearly surprised. He thought to himself, "I never thought that Bing Lu would know as soon as I arrived here. He even sent someone to receive me, which means he hasn't forgotten about the past at all." With a sigh, the ancestor of the Nanyan clan followed the child and arrived on an icy mountain in the hill. When he arrived there, his eyes narrowed. He stared ahead fixedly. 100 meters away, the hunchbacked Bing Lu stood with his dragon-headed staff on a piece of ice. The ancestor of the Nanyan clan's face became mixed when he saw the familiar figure. He could not help but think back to the days he spent roaming the world with Bing Lu. Many years ago, the two of them became good friends. They had roamed the world when they were gods in the past, yet Bing Lu had already become an overgod now, while he remained a god. The difference in strength seemed to have physically separated the two of them, causing them to drift apart unknowingly. "Nanyan Tong, it has been several dozen millennia since we've seen each other." Bing Lu slowly stood up and sighed. Time really did fly like an arrow. He felt slightly unfamiliar when he saw Nanyan Tong today. "Yeah, it has been several tens of thousand years. Time really does fly," said Nanyan Tong. As he looked at his old friend, he suddenly felt that everyone had changed. If it were not for the significance of the matter that had forced him to run out of choices, he really did not want to disturb his familiar yet now unfamiliar friend. Bing Lu arrived before Nanyan Tong. With a wave of his hand, a table completely condensed from ice appeared silently. Bing Lu gestured for Nanyan Tong to sit down before slowly sitting down. Nanyan Tong did not hold back and sat down before Bing Lu. Although there was a huge difference between their strength, there was no need for him to behave as politely as he would to other overgods before Bing Lu. "Nanyan Tong, you've especially come here today, and it is probably not just because you want to visit me. Tell me what troubles you've encountered. If it's within my abilities, I will definitely assist you," said Bing Lu. Chapter 1769, The 10th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 3. "I really can't hide anything from you." Nanyan Tong smiled bitterly. He sighed gently and said slowly, "Bing Lu, I've really come across quite a large problem in the Dong'an province this time." As Bing Lu listened to Nanyan Tong, he waved his hand gently. Ice moved and immediately condensed into 2 cups. He took out some precious liquor from his space ring and poured it into the 2 ice cups and gestured for Nanyan Tong to drink. Nanyan Tong lifted up the cup with both hands. After clinking it with Bing Lu's cup, he downed the whole thing and said slowly, "A small high-grade divine crystal mine has appeared in our Dong'an province. Even though it's only a small mine, it holds great importance to our entire province. It also relates to the future of our Nanyan clan. It's just that an overgod from another divine kingdom has taken over the mine. With the current strength of the province, no one can threaten an overgod, so I purposefully came to visit you to see if you could resolve the matter." Bing Lu glanced at Nanyan Tong deeply and smiled gently. "Since you've come to me for a matter like that, it looks like your Nanyan clan takes quite a large portion of the divine crystals. If you don't get the mine back, your Nanyan clan will be the one that suffers the greatest losses." Nanyan Tong smiled awkwardly. "You're joking, brother Bing Lu. Right now, my Nanyan clan, the Hua family, and the Dong family take 25% of all the divine crystals mined. The other 75% is split among the other clans. Nanyun Tong paused there. Then he smiled deeply and continued, "It's just that quite a few gods of the other clans in our provincial city have entered God King Duanmu's dwelling, but only a few have emerged. Aside from the god that our Nanyun clan lost a few years ago, we haven't lost anyone else." Nanyun Tong had asked for Bing Lu to take back the mine for the Dong'an province because he had already expected that the powerful clans would suffer heavy losses with the opening of God King Duanmu's dwelling. Many of them would even lose the right to remain in the provincial city, so how the divine crystals would be split would definitely be redecided. At that time, his Nanyun clan could borrow Bing Lu to claim the largest share. Bing Lu nodded and said with ease, "All right, I'll help you. Nanyun Tong, I hope you can become an overgod soon." Nanyun Tong immediately beamed with joy when he heard Bing Lu's reply. He seemed to think of something and added, "Oh right, the overgod who took over the mine seems to have comprehended the laws of the sword." An overgod who has comprehended the laws of the sword? Nanyun Tong would have been better off if he had not mentioned that. Bing Lu's eyes immediately narrowed when he heard these words. As an overgod, Bing Lu naturally had information that a god like Nanyun Tong could not get his hands on. Someone like Nanyun Tong would have only heard about a few overgods in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, while Bing Lu would know much more than the overgods in the entire divine kingdom. He would basically know all the overgods in the neighboring divine kingdoms as well. He also knew that aside from Ling Hogong and Jian Shen who he had worked with in God King Duanmu's dwelling, there were no other overgods who comprehended the laws of the sword. "Nanyun Tong, do you know what the overgod looks like?" Bing Lu stared at Nanyun Tong in interest. His leisurely appearance had vanished, and a smear of sternness appeared. Bing Lu's change stunned Nanyun Tong. He suddenly had an extremely ill omen. However, he still did not hesitate. Through his fantastic memory, he drew the person drawn by Ziki again. To no surprise, his drawing depicted Jian Shen. When Bing Lu saw that it was actually Jian Shen, his face immediately changed. He gently placed down the ice cup in his hands and sighed softly. "Brother Bing Lu, do you know this person?" Nanyun Tong could not help but ask. Bing Lu responded after a while of silence, "I do know this person. He was one of the people who entered the dwelling first with God King Duanmu's jade. He's extremely powerful. 2 early overgods died at his hands in the dwelling." Nanyun Tong revealed a rather ugly expression. He murmured, "He was actually one of the people to enter the dwelling first? Was he the one who killed the gods from my Nanyun clan and the Hua family several years ago?" Bing Lu stared at Nanyun Tong sternly and said, "Nanyun Tong, considering that we once roamed the world together, I have to warn you to not offend this person. He is far more complicated than he seems. Not only is he extremely powerful, but there's also a supreme expert behind him as well." Bing Lu could not help but think of Fairy Haoyu when he mentioned the supreme expert. Even when she was just a fragile soul, she was able to make it through the power of laws from God King Duanmu who already had a foot planted in the primordial realm. That explained everything. It explained that Fairy Haoyu was extremely powerful in her past life, and her comprehension of laws had surpassed God King Duanmu's. However, Bing Lu did not know that the young man with a fan who saved Jian Shen in the end came from an extremely great background as well. He actually possessed a God King as a personal guard. Nanyun Tong's face immediately changed when he heard Bing Lu's serious warning. "Don't look into the death of your god anymore, and it's best if the clans in the Dong'an province stop fantasizing about the high-grade divine crystal mine. What he lacks the most right now is cultivation resources like divine crystals," continued Bing Lu. He was afraid that Nanyun Tong would offend Jian Shen. Several days later, Nanyun Tong returned to the Dong'an province. He did not tell everyone about his conversation with Bing Lu, nor did he give any detailed explanation. He directly announced that his Nanyun clan would give up on the mine in the Dark Cloud Mountains and would no longer take part in the matter. The departure of the Nanyun clan immediately caused quite a large disturbance in the provincial city. Although the Nanyan clan did not give any proper explanation, the other powerful clans in the provincial city were not stupid either. They could tell that they could not afford to provoke the over-god who had taken over the mine from the Nanyan clan's actions. The Hua family and the Dong family maintained their silence over the matter of the mountain range after the Nanyan clan announced that they were backing out. Even the three most powerful clans in the Dong'an province were unwilling to touch the Dark Cloud Mountains anymore, so the other clans in the provincial city naturally understood that they probably would not be able to get the mine back. Even though they all felt despaired, there was nothing they could do about it. It has been 3 months. Those clans in the provincial city still haven't moved, the black-clothed Shen Jian murmured as he sat on the peak of a mountain, gazing towards the provincial city. Now, it had already been 3 months since Jian Chen started cultivating. Shen Jian had always been waiting for the clans during that period of time, but it was evident that not a single soul from the provincial city had come. Many of the divine crystals deep underground had been reduced to regular stone after losing all their origin energy during Jian Chen's 3 months of cultivation. Chapter 1770, The 10th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 4. In the depths of the mine, Jian Chen sat in the air as dense and pure origin energy gathered from the surroundings. It gathered so quickly that it basically surpassed Jian Chen's rate of absorption, causing the origin energy that condensed around Jian Chen to almost solidify. It had become a cocoon completely condensed from origin energy that enveloped Jian Chen. After all, Jian Chen currently resided within a high-grade divine crystal mine. There was an astronomical number of hidden high-grade divine crystals in the rock around him, making it equivalent to him sitting among divine crystals. The rate at which origin energy gathered over would obviously be shocking. Jian Chen was like a bottomless hole as he rapidly absorbed the pure origin energy in his surroundings. As tremendous quantities of origin energy were absorbed and then refined, his chaotic Niden swelled slowly at a visible rate. Even though the chaotic Niden grew at an extremely slow rate, only by a tiny portion each day, it was an unbelievable rate to Jian Chen who had possessed the chaotic body for so many years already. It was far, far faster compared to when he absorbed the energy of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock, or the power from the evil spirit. This was all due to the purity of the origin energy within the high-grade divine crystals he absorbed. Not only were they extremely easy to absorb, but refining the energy was much less arduous as well. It was exactly because of this that Jian Chen's chaotic Niden had grown from the size of a pigeon's egg to a chicken's egg in just 3 short months of cultivating here. At this rate, my chaotic Niden will probably reach the limits of the 9th layer in a year, Jian Chen thought. At the same time, he became slightly excitedly. He was eager for the 10th layer of the chaotic body. The 9th layer of the chaotic body only made his cultivation level equivalent to deities. Once he broke through to the 10th layer, his level of cultivation would directly reach gods. Although the 10th layer of the chaotic body would not be able to elevate his cultivation to over god, his battle prowess would rise tremendously. After all, just the toughness of the chaotic body at the 10th layer would be able to endure attacks from gods. Even if he did not block or dodge, gods would not be able to harm him at all. The 10th layer of the chaotic body was simply too powerful. Even if regular gods launched full-powered attacks at Jian Chen, they would not be able to get through his skin. They could only draw blood if their attacks had surpassed the limits of what the chaotic body could endure. This was the advantage of the chaotic body. Any cultivator of the chaotic body could claim to be invincible among the same realm of cultivation. Only prodigies that also claimed the title of being invincible had the right to challenge them. But even with that, the outcome would more often be the victory of the chaotic body than defeat. Of course, being invincible among the same level of cultivation was not actually being the strongest at the same level of cultivation. As long as they could defeat 99% of people at the same level of cultivation and challenge those at higher cultivation levels, they would earn the title of invincible. This was because there would be far too few opponents at the same level of cultivation as them. Even with an entire plane or major planet in perspective, there would only be a handful. Nothing happened as Jian Chen cultivated. The people of the Dong'an province did not come to disturb him, which slightly surprised Jian Chen. Naturally, Jian Shen did not know that the reason why he could cultivate in peace after taking over the mine was all because of what Bing Lu had told Nan Yun Tong. In the blink of an eye, another 15 months passed. Jian Shen had already been cultivating there for 1.5 years now. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had finally reached the size of a fist after the 1.5 years of cultivation. He had reached the limits of the 9th layer. During this period of time, he had been cultivating many times faster than he had ever cultivated on the Tian Yuan continent. However, Jian Shen did not stop there. He continued to absorb the surrounding origin energy wildly. Finally, after another half a month, the amount of chaotic force he possessed exceeded what his chaotic Niden could possess. With a boom, surging chaotic force rampaged through Jian Shen's body violently and destructively. His body immediately began to tremble violently as he paled in that instance as well. His forehead became covered in cold sweat. Droplets of blood had even oozed out of his powers as they pulsed with energy, causing Jian Shen to become all bloodied. The cultivator of the chaotic body had to endure the excruciating pain of reforging the body every time they broke through. At the same time, the toughness of the body would leap up qualitatively with each breakthrough. Chaotic force was just too brutal. Without a tough body, it was impossible to endure the power of chaotic force, so with each breakthrough, the chaotic force would become more powerful and break the balance between the body. It would injure the body as it circulated, hence, it brought on excruciating pain. Only when the chaotic body reached the same level as the chaotic force, becoming just as powerful, would the chaotic force no longer be able to harm the body as it circulated. Only then would the pain disappear. This was the weakness of the ordinary chaotic body. The possessor of the innate chaotic body would not have to endure the pain of reforging their body or the agony of shattering the chaotic Niden 18 times. Several days later, Jian Shen made his way out of the mine steadily in a new set of white robes. In the past year and a half, the mine had lost all of its divine crystals as well, being reduced to a regular mountain range. Several kilometers away, Shenjian's eyes snapped open when Jian Shen made his way out of the mine. With a flash, he suddenly vanished from the mountain peak. When he appeared again, he had already arrived before Jian Shen. Shenjian's eyes shone brightly as he stared at Jian Shen. Jian Shen's cultivation method was different, and he was actually unable to tell if Jian Shen's strength had broken through at all. He could only vaguely sense that his presence seemed to have become much more powerful than before. At the same time, his slender body seemed to contain an extremely terrifying and powerful energy. "You broke through?" Shenjian asked Jian Shen. Jian Shen smiled faintly and said, "Try attacking me." With that, a gleam of light flashed through Shenjian's eyes. With the clear thrum of a sword, the dark cloud stream sword appeared in his hand in a single moment. He wielded the sword as he stabbed towards Jian Shen with lightning speed, utilizing the power from the laws of the sword. Since Shenjian knew just how powerful Jian Shen was, he did not hold back his strength even though he did not use a battle skill. With his late god level of comprehension and early god level of cultivation, his strike was no weaker than a mid-god's attack. It was even slightly stronger than attacks from regular mid-gods. This was because he comprehended the laws of the sword, which was known to be one of the most powerful offensive laws available. Chapter 1771, Separation. However, Jian Shen did not defend against Shenjian's attack at all. He smiled as he stood there leisurely with his hands behind his back. He wanted to use the toughness of his body to resist Shenjian's attack. With dazzling light, Shenjian's cloudstream sword landed on Jian Shen's chest. It radiated with powerful sword chi, and Jian Shen's clothes were immediately reduced to dust, not a single shred remained. It revealed his stature, which was rather slender. The dark cloudstream sword pressed against Jian Shen's chest with its sharp edge as it shone brightly. However, to Shenjian's disbelief, Jian Shen stopped the attack with his body and emerged completely unscathed. Shenjian's attack that was even stronger than the attack of regular mid-gods had failed to even leave a mark on Jian Shen. The surging light around the cloud stream sword completely failed to injure Jian Chen as well. Shen Jian's eyes narrowed suddenly at this sight as disbelief flooded his face. He already knew that Jian Chen's body was extremely tough. Back when Jian Chen fought Xiongzhong on the Tianyuan continent, he was clearly not as powerful, yet he managed to drive back Xiongzhong thanks to the toughness of his body and superior regeneration. Afterwards, Shen Jian personally fought Jian Chen in outer space. The battle had cleaved the moon in half. Back then, Shen Jian's strength had completely exceeded Jian Chen's, but in the end, Jian Chen managed to cause heavy wounds to both sides thanks to the toughness of his body and unimaginable regeneration. However, Shen Jian had never thought that Jian Chen's body would reach such an unbelievable toughness today. His full-powered strike had failed to harm Jian Chen at all. This left Shen Jian utterly shocked. Looking at his unscathed chest, Jian Chen was pleased with himself and nodded. He said, "I estimate that mid-gods are unable to harm me at all. Only when attacks have reached the level of late god can they draw blood." What a tough body! Shen Jian could not help but sigh in amazement as he drew back the cloud stream sword. Let alone overgods, even god kings could not endure an attack from a mid-god and emerge unscathed without blocking at all. In fact, even some primordial realm experts might not be able to achieve that. Gods were unable to threaten overgods or god kings because the origin energy they possessed was far more powerful. Even the laws they had comprehended were more powerful. Overgods and god kings only needed to use origin energy or the power of laws to cast down a layer of defense, and gods would struggle to get through it. If they did not use origin energy or the laws and used their body instead, even god kings would probably end up having the sword driven through their entire body. Even some weaker primordial realm experts would not be able to endure an attack from a god. Of course, that was unless they practiced a cultivation method that forged the body, making their bodies extraordinarily tough. It was also exactly because of this that in both the Saints' World and on the Tianyuan continent, people who were clearly much weaker could kill a few heavily injured experts, even if the disparity in strength led to the weaker party being looked down upon as ants. It was exactly due to the fragility of their bodies. Once they lost their powerful cultivation, even the existences that they had treated as ants in the past could threaten their lives. However, Jian Chen's chaotic body was an exception. Even if he was heavily injured, even if he was unconscious, mid-gods would not be able to kill him thanks to the current toughness of his chaotic body. They would fail to even leave a mark on his body. I'm confident about facing late gods with my current strength. Even if I can't defeat them, I can last for quite a while with the recovery of my body and healing pills. The only pity is that my abilities with Radiant Saint Force have fallen behind, Jian Chen said confidently. His Radiant Saint Force remained at the 9th class, making it equivalent to Saint Emperor. However, his cultivation had already reached the level of gods. Class 9 Radiant Saint Force was unable to help him much anymore. Shen Jian nodded sympathetically. If your Radiant Saint Force can catch up to the strength of your body, your recovery rate will be even more impressive. Any wounds you receive will probably recover before you're able to receive a second wound. They won't be able to kill you unless they completely exceed you in strength. Oh right, why can't you continue to progress with the cultivation of your Radiant Saint Force? Shen Jian asked again. He felt like the weakness of the Radiant Saint Force had become a flaw in Jian Chen's defenses. Jian Chen furrowed his brows as he sank into his thoughts. He said, after I condensed my soul core with Radiant Saint Force, I've been unable to advance any further. I heard from Fairy Hao Yu in the past that once I condense the soul core, the 7-colored flower must bloom, and I must condense a soul tree. Making the 7-colored flower bloom and condensing a soul tree should be the upcoming cultivation levels for Radiant Saint Force. It's just that no one has ever reached such a level on the Tianyuan continent, and I've only learned a limited amount of information from Fairy Hao Yu, so I don't know what it's about. After a moment of silence, Shen Jian said, I think you just lack the cultivation method for Radiant Saint Force. Your Radiant Saint Force will only continue to progress after you find the cultivation method. That's what I was thinking too, Jian Chen agreed. Not only did he lack the further cultivation methods for Radiant Saint Force, but he also lacked the techniques and method to use martial soul force. Nodding gently, Jian Shen stopped thinking about the matter. It was useless if he thought about it right now anyway. Soon afterwards, he waved his hand and 2 blocks of high-grade divine crystals suddenly appeared. They landed on the ground with heavy thuds. Jian Shen had directly taken out 2 of the 3 blocks of high-grade divine crystal he had obtained from the dwelling of God King Duanmu's disciple. He pointed towards the 2 blocks and said to Shenjian, "I'm going to God King Duanmu's dwelling immediately, and I might be able to help Fairy Haoyu in time. Shenjian, take these 2 blocks. You can break them up in the royal city into mid-grade divine crystals for cultivation." A block of high-grade divine crystal was a meter in length, width, and depth, while a standard divine crystal was 1 centimeter in length, width, and depth. As a result, a block of divine crystal was equivalent to 1 million of the corresponding standard divine crystals. 2 blocks of high-grade divine crystals would be equivalent to 200 million standard mid-grade divine crystals. Shenjian did not hold back. He put the 2 blocks away straightforwardly. He would probably be unable to reach mid-god if he directly absorbed the 2 blocks of high-grade divine crystals, but once he broke them up, it would be enough for him to reach late god. Afterwards, Jian Shen and Shenjian decided to separate for the first time after coming to the saint's world. Jian Shen directly headed off for God King Duanmu's dwelling while Shenjian headed to the royal city with the 2 blocks of high-grade divine crystal. The 2 blocks of divine crystal were very valuable, but with Shenjian's current strength, no one was able to threaten him unless he encountered overgods. Chapter 1772. Fairy Haoyu recovers. The Dark Cloud Mountains were several million kilometers away from God King Duanmu's dwelling, but it was really nothing to Jian Shen. Before long, Jian Shen had crossed the distance and arrived outside God King Duanmu's dwelling. The entrance to the dwelling was opened up many years ago, so the dwelling that had been hidden away for countless years was now revealed before everyone. Anyone could enter and exit without obstructions. Originally, there was no origin energy in God King Duanmu's dwelling, but as the entrance was opened up, the space inside was reconnected with the outside world. All the dense origin energy in the outside world poured into the dwelling, causing it to become filled with origin energy. In the past, there was only radiant saint force inside. Jian Shen erased his presence and stood outside the dwelling with a low profile. He gazed around, observing the surroundings habitually. Although the God King's dwelling had been open for many years now, there were still many people gathered in the surroundings. These people ranged from the origin realm to gods. Without any exception, the people would glance towards the entrance from time to time, and even when they conversed with the people beside them, they would pay attention to the entrance. Jian Shen hovered in the sky. There were people all around him, and people would enter or leave the dwelling from time to time. As a result, his arrival was nothing special and did not catch anyone's attention. This was because people would constantly arrive or leave the dwelling. Jian Shen only glanced around out of habit, but his face changed very soon. Even though many people moved around, he could clearly sense that a few of the people who stood without moving seemed to be in positions that followed certain laws as if they stood in a tremendous formation. There's someone setting a trap here? Jian Shen was surprised inside. He carefully observed where the people were standing without his expression changing at all and confirmed his thoughts even more. The people just happened to be standing in position for a tremendous formation. This formation does seem rather familiar. Why does it seem like a teleportation formation? Jian Shen became rather stern. After checking it again, he finally confirmed that the people were standing in a teleportation formation. As he had studied the teleportation on the Tianyuan continent a little, he was able to recognize it very quickly even though he did not possess any mastery over formations. Someone is scheming against Fairy Haoyu or the overgods in the dwelling. Once people enter the formation, they'll be sent to somewhere else. It'll be extremely dangerous, or even a zone of danger. Jian Shen's expression became ugly as he felt relieved that he had made it here in time. Otherwise, someone would probably ambush Fairy Haoyu once she emerged from the dwelling. Fairy Haoyu was very powerful in her former life, a primordial realm expert, but Jian Shen refused to believe that she could recover her peak strength from God King Duanmu's possessions alone. At the same time, over 30 overgods barraged the layer of power from laws in the depths of the dwelling. The layer of power was powerful, but it was only being worn away as it had no way to replenish itself. As a result, the layer had become extremely fragile after withstanding against attacks for so long. Fairy Haoyu was no longer an illusionary soul now. She had condensed her body, and after a period of recovery, her cultivation had reached peak god as well. She was only a step away from overgod. God King Duanmu's remains beside her had vanished, replaced by a white pile of ashes. Quick, everyone put in some more force. The layer of power is about to be dispersed, and God King Duanmu's possessions are going to end up in our hands, a late overgod called out among the overgods who were attacking the layer of power. He immediately struck out as hard as he could, hitting the thin layer of power heavily. All the other overgods gathered their energies as well and struck out with full force. Although Fairy Haoyu had taken away God King Duanmu's space ring, were they really supposed to fear a soul that had just condensed a body with so many people present? Boom! The layer of power finally collapsed after withstanding everyone's full-powered attacks, and it slowly dispersed, finally exposing Fairy Haoyu who had always been protected in there. As soon as the power of laws collapsed, late overgod Yang Kai turned into a blur and shot towards Fairy Haoyu as quickly as he could. His powerful hands directly reached towards the space ring in Fairy Haoyu's hands as his eyes burned with desire. Everyone present could sense that Fairy Haoyu was only a late god, so they did not take her too seriously. As soon as Yang Kai moved, the other late overgods moved as well as they rushed towards Fairy Haoyu. They were no slower than Yang Kai. Behind them were the mid-overgods, and there were even a few other early overgods. They were slower, so they fell behind. Even though they were not as powerful as the late overgods right now, they felt no fear, deciding to take part in the fight for the space ring. Very few of them were bold enough to provoke late overgods during other times, but they had all abandoned their fear now that God King Duanmu's treasures were presented before them. How dare you! At this moment, Fairy Haoyu's eyes snapped open from her seated position in the sky. She stared coldly at the fierce overgods, and her face appeared dignified. At that moment, she seemed to have become a great god as if she could look down on everything like ants. Even her gaze towards the overgods was as if she was looking at ants she could crush with a finger. The overgods immediately shivered from her gaze. Even though Fairy Haoyu had not recovered, the dignified manner she possessed remained. With that, just a single glance was enough to cause the overgods to experience chills. However, she had not recovered her strength yet. The overgods knew that she was only a late god, so she was unable to deter them. Fairy Haoyu's face turned cold. Even though she had only recovered to the point of late god right now, she felt no fear against over 30 overgods. She raised a finger and a bright full moon condensed in a single moment. Chapter 1773, Slaughtering Overgods. The full moon shone extremely brightly with strands of clear moonlight that enveloped Fairy Haoyu. Fairy Haoyu became filled with a sacred beauty under the pure and gentle moonlight. She seemed like a fairy that had come from the moon. That was how otherworldly she seemed. An unpredictable presence permeated her surroundings. Suddenly, a heavy, icy cold killing intent began to radiate from the picturesque scene. The moon above her head suddenly began to shine brighter as it emitted an extremely thick pillar of light towards the overgods with lightning speed. The overgods who charged towards Fairy Haoyu did not treat Fairy Haoyu's attack with any seriousness at all. After all, Fairy Haoyu was only a late god. She was unable to threaten them. Even if she used a powerful battle skill, it would only be able to make early overgods become stern. However, the overgods were no longer able to remain composed as the pillar of light enveloped them. All their faces underwent overwhelming changes, and they were now filled with shock. Indeed, they had no need to take the energy hidden within the pillar of light seriously, but there were extremely powerful laws in there as well. At that moment, everyone immediately felt their bodies pause when the moonlight enveloped them. They had been frozen in the same posture as the moonlight enveloped them, as if they had become stuck in a picture, unable to move at all. What is this ability? I actually can't move. What is going on? The over 30 overgods were greatly shocked. They immediately circulated their origin energy as they tried to break free. At the same time, strands of power from laws condensed, attacking the constraints of the moonlight as chains of laws. Fairy Hao paled after using the ability, and a smear of weakness appeared on her face. However, she did not hesitate at all. She drifted over and arrived before a late overgod with lightning speed, directly extending a finger towards his forehead. Even though the late overgod was trapped, he could still utilize the powerful origin energy within him. The origin energy burst out of his body and enveloped him as a barrier. At the same time, he controlled his power of laws to attack Fairy Hao. However, regardless of what defensive measures he tried to take, they were useless before Fairy Hao's finger. His power of laws dispersed while the origin energy around him collapsed. Fairy Hao's finger directly pierced through his forehead with a strand of moonlight force and wiped out his soul. However, Fairy Hao became even paler after claiming the life of a late overgod. She seemed to become even weaker than before, but she did not stop. Her gaze was cold as she extended a finger towards a second late overgod. Spurt. Fairy Hao easily killed a second late overgod under everyone's attention. Even though Fairy Hao was only a late god right now, she was able to kill late overgods like ants. They were unable to put up any resistance before her at all. It was just that the movement took a great toll on Fairy Hao. She seemed to become even weaker after killing 2 late overgods, and her face had even become rather haggard. With that, all the overgods paled. All of them gazed towards Fairy Hao in fear, but they were all trapped and unable to move. They could only watch Fairy Hao make her way towards them like a god of death. They had been reduced to sitting ducks. Gritting her teeth, Fairy Hao extended a third finger. Her target was Yang Kai from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed to the size of pinheads. As he watched Fairy Hao's finger grow closer and closer, he became extremely worried. He was filled with a sense of dread that he had never experienced before. His body was trapped, and he was immobilized. Let alone fighting back, he was not even able to dodge. If you kill me, Jian Chen's death is certain. Yang Kai brought up Jian Chen in this desperate situation. Even Yang Kai knew that he was speaking groundlessly. It could even be described as an immature joke, as Jian Chen had been saved long ago and was not present. Moreover, even he feared Jian Chen's 2 strands of profound sword qi very much. However, there was nothing else he could do aside from bringing up Jian Chen in a lie. As expected, Fairy Hao's finger came to a halt when she heard Yang Kai's words. It was at this time that Yang Kai bellowed out. Origin energy surged out from him, and he finally broke free from the restraints with the other overgods. He directly threw a punch towards Fairy Hao. At the same time, the other overgods behind him launched full-powered attacks towards Fairy Hao. They could tell from Fairy Hao's face that she was extremely weak right now. They were certain that it was impossible for her to keep casting her powerful techniques. Sigh, my soul is too weak right now. I can't fully use my comprehension of the laws of the world, so I can't even last for long even with the techniques that take the least toll on me, Fairy Hao sighed inside. She did not put up a fight against the overgods. With a wave of her hand, she took away the space rings of the 2 late overgods before directly flying towards the exit. Over half of the overgods pursued her from behind. They constantly sent strands of sword qi towards her. The sword qi struck the surrounding rock in the dwelling and emitted constant rumblings. They could tell that Fairy Hao was already a spent force. She no longer possessed the might that allowed her to slaughter the 2 late overgods so easily before. The remaining overgods had all been stunned by how Fairy Hao had killed the 2 late overgods. They did not dare to pursue. Yang Kai happened to be one of them. He glanced past the corpses of the 2 late overgods as cold sweat covered his forehead. So close. I avoided dying here by just this much, thought Yang Kai. He stared in the direction which Fairy Haoyu had flown off with lingering fear, and he seemed rather dejected. He had clearly given up on God King Duanmu's space ring. At this moment, Jian Chen's face suddenly changed as he stood outside the dwelling. He suddenly looked over towards the dwelling. The disturbances in the dwelling were just too great. Let alone Jian Chen, but even a few gods sensed the great disturbances in the dwelling. Chapter 1774, Jian Chen interferes. Fairy Haoyu has succeeded in condensing her body. Delight immediately appeared on Jian Chen's face as he looked towards the entrance. But the next moment, he frowned and became extremely stern. He could already see Fairy Haoyu fleeing with a pale face as many overgods pursued her aggressively. Jian Chen's face became sunken. He directed his gaze towards the huge formation that had been created silently, and a gleam of cold light flashed through his eyes. It was filled with cold killing intent. The teleportation formation was completely formed from cultivators at various levels standing in specific places. It seemed like a mess that lacked any order. Only those who knew about or were familiar with formations could notice the mysteries hidden within. As a result, basically no one else apart from Jian Chen discovered the teleportation formation outside the dwelling. However, as Fairy Haoyu rapidly fled from the dwelling, the people who stood in formation began to move. Clearly, they wanted to send Fairy Haoyu away as soon as she emerged. "Don't panic, listen to my instructions," an old voice rang out in the heads of all the cultivators who took part in the formation. Only those in the formation could hear the voice. The owner of the voice was an extremely ordinary young man who hid amongst the crowd. The strength he revealed was not great, it was only at the level of early gods. He did not raise the attention of the people gathered outside the dwelling at all with his strength. Coupled with his apparent ordinariness, no one noticed him. At this moment, the young man's eyes shone brightly. He stared at the dwelling eagerly and excitedly. He thought inside, "Fight, fight. The more fiercely you fight, the better. It's best if you all become injured. Only then will I be happy. The possessions of God King Duanmu are destined to be mine. No one will be fighting over it with me." The young man slowly extended his right hand. He held an 8 trigrams disc in his right hand, and a huge sleeve covered it. The rumbles from the dwelling became even more intense. Fairy Haoyu rapidly approached the entrance. Right now, even the many gods and deities gathered outside the entrance could see her clearly. Many people immediately began to retreat rapidly, backing away from the entrance. They were afraid that they would become innocent casualties of the shockwaves from the battle between overgods. However, many people chose to remain where they were. To no surprise, these people included the many cultivators who took part in the teleportation formation. "Get ready." The young man also became nervous in the crowd as he communicated with all the people in the formation. It had already reached the moment of truth now. Finally, under everyone's gazes, the white-clothed Fairy Haoyu flew out of the dwelling. A layer of clear moonlight surrounded her. "Activate the formation." The young man basically bellowed towards the people in the formation secretly. At the same time, he threw his 8 trigrams disc into the sky. Immediately, a powerful beam of white light shot into the sky, and the huge teleportation formation outside the dwelling was activated. It shone with light as terrifying energy rolled through the surroundings, causing the expressions of everyone outside the dwelling to change. "It's a formation. This is a formation." Someone actually secretly cast down such a powerful formation outside the dwelling. Heavens, I actually failed to sense it at all when I was standing in it. This tremendous formation has actually been cast using several tens of thousands of people. Heavens, what extravagance. The person who cast down this formation must possess great mastery over formations. Many cultivators stared at the formation in shock as they cried out outside the dwelling. At the same time, Fairy Haoyu frowned as she gazed at the formation in the surroundings. Fury had covered her face, and she snorted coldly. "It's actually a teleportation formation. Looks like the place where I'll be sent to has already been set up long ago." Ha ha ha, I never thought that I'd be reduced to the point where I would fall for the schemes of ants. Fairy Hao Yu laughed coldly. She had already entered the teleportation formation now. Immediately, with a single movement, she shot towards the exterior as quickly as she could. Suddenly, an 8 trigrams disc flew over from the distance. It shone with a hazy light as profound formations flickered and revolved around the disc. The appearance of the disc had caused the space there to thicken. Space actually froze at a visible rate, suspending the origin energy there and disturbing the region of space. Fairy Hao Yu was affected as well. She moved extremely slowly as a mysterious power sealed up her surroundings. Fairy Hao Yu's eyes were cold. Even though she had fallen into a horrible situation, she did not panic. She remained as calm as she was normally. However, her pupils gradually whitened. They shone with pure white light like moonlight, as if her pupils had become moons. Fairy Hao Yu's comprehension of laws in her former life had reached an extremely profound level. However, she still had not recovered her soul, so she was unable to use the power of laws from her peak condition. However, now that she had run out of choices, she was prepared to burn her soul again and use the power of laws from the primordial realm. At this moment, extremely powerful sword chi soared into the sky outside the teleportation formation. Jian Chen, who had been hidden within the crowd all along, moved. Densely packed, raindrop-like specks of sword chi gathered around him. Even though the sword chi was weak and unable to harm over gods or even kill gods, it was fatal to deities and origin realm cultivators. Gods and deities took up a tiny portion among the several tens of thousand people who stood in the formation. Most of them were at the origin realm. Fairy Hao Yu could not help but become startled when she sensed the sword chi suddenly appear. She quickly turned her head towards Jian Chen and immediately stopped burning her soul. She could not help but smile faintly. Jian Chen was stern as icy cold, killing intent shone in his eyes. As he extended his finger, the countless strands of sword chi around him immediately shot towards the people in the formation as a huge, silver-white chain. Countless strands of sword chi ripped through the sky as they shone with dazzling white light. From afar, it seemed like a waterfall that was extending and spreading across the sky, creating an extremely grand scene. Chapter 1775. Chanlong's scheme. The young man that was hidden amongst the crowd and commanding all the cultivators almost leapt up when he saw Jian Chen's actions, as if Jian Chen had crossed his bottom line. His face completely sank and powerful killing intent and surging fury raged in his gaze towards Jian Chen. Jian Chen, if you dare ruin what I've set up, I'll never forgive you. The young man bellowed out as terrifying killing intent permeated his surroundings. He immediately charged over as quickly as he could in an attempt to stop Jian Chen's strands of sword chi. As the young man charged towards Jian Chen, his presence steadily rose as well, and it instantly reached his limit. He was no early god and was clearly an overgod. A late overgod? Jian Chen became stern as he glanced towards the young man. The sword chi that shot towards the people in the formation moved even faster than before now. The young man charged over. He let loose a furious roar as his presence surged. He had reached his full speed, transforming into a streak of light. He wanted to use his body as a shield to block all the sword chi. However, even with his strength at a late overgod, he was still a little slow. When he arrived before the dense cluster of sword chi, a small portion had already approached the huge teleportation formation, heading towards the people in the formation. Immediately, miserable cries rang out. In the blink of an eye, several hundred origin realm cultivators and deities were riddled with holes. Sword chi had even passed through the heads of a few people, wiping out their souls. Just this single attack claimed the lives of several hundred or even over 1,000 origin realm cultivators and deities. Blood splashed into the sky and fell, making it seem like it was raining blood. Swathes of lifeless corpses fell from the sky. Even though there were several tens of thousand people who took part in the formation was so detailed that the teleportation would fail even if a minute error occurred. The deaths of all the people directly damaged the teleportation formation severely, preventing it from continuing its operation. The huge teleportation gradually dimmed. The deaths of the people had prevented the formation from filling up with energy and continuing to work. As a result, the other people in the formation suffered a powerful backlash, and they all vomited blood and became heavily injured. Jian Chen, you've ruined everything. I will never forgive you. The late overgod roared out angrily. He was utterly furious as terrifying killing intent permeated his surroundings. It was enough to cause people to shiver. So close. It was so close. If you gave me just a little more time, I would have been able to transport her away. At that time, everything she obtained from the dwelling would have been mine. I could have even learnt about many more things from the soul that recovered her body. God damn it. It was just the final step. The young man roared out furiously inside. His mood had changed so drastically that he had almost gone berserk. He had expended so much effort and paid a hefty price to secretly cast down a teleportation formation under the noses of all the people present. Just when he was about to watch it all succeed, Jian Chen unexpectedly killed his way over, reducing his efforts to nothing. At the same time, all the overgods who pursued Fairy Haoyu saw the young man. All their faces paled from anger. Master Chanlong, it's actually you, Master Chanlong. Didn't you say that you wouldn't be taking part in the fight for God King Duanmu's possessions, so you left the dwelling? I never thought you would be so sly, secretly casting down such a great teleportation formation outside the dwelling, Master Chanlong. Your actions don't seem to match your status. The other side of the teleportation formation must be extremely dangerous. If we were transported, we would probably be as good as dead. Master Chanlong, we will remember this. Let's wait and see what happens in the future, the overgods all called out angrily. Many of their faces sank because Fairy Haoyu was not the only one who had fallen into the formation earlier. There were several pursuing overgods as well. Once the formation was activated, Fairy Haoyu would not be the only one who was transported away. The young man completely ignored the insults the overgod spewed. He charged towards Jian Chen furiously. As he swung his hands, he immediately threw out banners for formations that flew towards Jian Chen. His appearance also underwent a drastic change at that moment. He became a gray-haired old man. He was Master Chanlong. Jian Chen drifted backwards gently, avoiding Master Chanlong's formation banners from afar. At the same time, he launched strands of sword qi towards the formation banners. Master Chanlong formed a seal with his hands. Every single banner he had tossed out shone with dazzling light as powerful ripples of energy expanded. The banners he threw out actually connected in that moment. In the end, it formed a huge python that was several hundred meters long. The python was completely assembled from the inscriptions of the formations. The presence it gave off was no weaker than late overgod. As Master Chanlong extended a finger towards Jian Chen from the distance, the huge python immediately charged towards Jian Chen as it wriggled its tail. On the other hand, Master Chanlong charged towards Fairy Haoyu. We can never allow a sly bastard like Chanlong to succeed, a person immediately cried out among the overgods. Soon afterwards, all the overgods who had never forgotten about God King Duanmu's possessions charged towards Fairy Haoyu as well. However, under the disturbance of Master Chanlong's disc, the space there thickened, causing the overgods to all slow down when they charged into the area. Master Chanlong was the only one that remained unaffected. On the other side, Jian Chen battled against Master Chanlong's huge python that had been constructed from formation banners. Jian Chen formed a seal. Immediately, a golden sword qi condensed, shooting towards the python's head as a golden streak of light. Boom! With a deafening boom, the python emerged unscathed after taking on Jian Chen's Daluo sword. Jian Chen's attack had only slowed down the python slightly. Chapter 1776. The Trapped Soul. This python is very difficult to deal with. Master Chanlong's mastery over formations really has reached an extremely profound level. He has broadened my horizons over how formations can be used. He could actually produce something so powerful, Jian Chen thought. He ignored the python and flew towards Fairy Haoyu. However, the python did not let him go unhindered. Although it had only condensed from a formation, it was extremely intelligent. With a sweep of its tail, the tail turned into a blur and shot over with lightning speed. Bang! The tail struck Jian Chen's back with unimaginably tremendous force. It directly reduced his clothes to shreds. His entire body was blown away while his back was reduced to a bloody mess. Jian Chen's gaze turned cold. He circulated his chaotic force as the injury on his back immediately healed at an unbelievable rate. It closed up in the blink of an eye. What a tough body. That's the first time I've ever seen such a tough body. At this moment, a mental pulse emerged from the python. Its tone was filled with amazement. However, soon afterwards, another mental pulse emerged. What? How is that possible? Just how did you make a full recovery? My eyes must be seeing wrong. Yes, it's my eyes. I've seen wrong. How can your recovery rate be so fiendish? I must have seen wrong. It must have been my eyes. Sigh, I've already weakened to a point like this where I see illusions, and it was so realistic as well. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the python that was constructed from flickering inscriptions, and a sliver of surprise gradually appeared in his eyes. He suddenly discovered that the huge python was not just a series of inscriptions. There was quite a powerful soul hidden in the python as well. Jian Chen estimated that the soul was a late overgod's. There's actually a trapped overgod's soul? Jian Chen said in surprise. He could already tell that the late overgod's soul was trapped in the formation to strengthen the formation. At the same time, it seemed to have become the spirit of the formation. However, Jian Chen's words seemed to have offended the soul trapped within the formation. The trapped soul roared out, "So what if I'm trapped? Kiddo, let me warn you. Don't look down on trapped souls. Even trapped souls have dignity. You're trapped within the formation, so you've become Master Chanlong's puppet. It must have been against your will to end up like this. Move." "I don't want to fight you," Jian Chen said coldly. "What? You're a brat who's still wet behind the ears, yet you want me to move? Humph, I'm not going to move. I'm going to stand in your way. What can you do about it? Come hit me if you have the ability." The soul caused a clamor cockily. On the other side, Fairy Haoyu dodged Master Chanlong's attacks closely. She managed to avoid each attack by the skin of her teeth. She was in an extremely precarious situation. However, she was completely composed and did not become flustered at all. She was ready to burn her soul at any time. However, the price she would have to pay for burning her soul was extremely great. She really did not want to do so unless she ran out of choices. Jian Chen's face immediately turned cold when he saw the dangerous situation Fairy Haoyu faced. With a thought, 2 strands of profound sword qi appeared above his head, and they radiated with powerful sword intent that even shocked overgods. As soon as Jian Chen's profound sword qi appeared, it attracted the attention of everyone present. At that moment, whether it was Master Chanlong or the other overgods who pursued Fairy Haoyu, they all focused on Jian Chen. A sliver of fear appeared in their eyes as they became cautious. Every single overgod feared Jian Chen's profound sword qi, including late overgods. Although a single strand of profound sword qi was not enough to kill a single late overgod, it could still deal almost fatal damage to them. "Brat, what is that? What are you trying to you? If you don't want to die, put that away," the soul within the formation stuttered slightly. Anyone could tell that he feared the profound sword qi too. After all, he was only a fragile soul now. He could only display the strength of a late overgod through the formations. Once he lost the formation, he would become extremely weak without a body. Cold light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes as he stared at the huge python that blocked his way. He was just about to shoot the first strand of profound sword qi. The soul controlled the huge formation that created the python. If it wanted to keep Jian Chen busy, Jian Chen really could not break free, so he could only use the profound sword qi. The trapped soul immediately became flustered, perhaps due to seeing the coldness in Jian Chen's eyes. He said, Don't look at me like that. What are you trying to do? Don't shoot, don't shoot. Brother, please don't shoot. I'll let you through. I'll let you through, alright? If you're still unhappy, just direct it all towards Chanlong. Treat me as if I don't exist, like you hadn't seen me. The trapped soul immediately became cowardly before the terrifying power of the profound sword qi. It fled far away, no longer blocking Jian Chen's path. At this moment, Master Chanlong's palm struck Fairy Hao Yu in the distance. She vomited blood and became heavily injured. Jian Chen ignored the fleeing huge python. He glared at Master Chanlong, and without any hesitation, he immediately sent out his first strand of profound sword qi. Swish! The profound sword qi turned into a strand of silver-white light as it shot out with unbelievable speed. Even late overgods were unable to capture it with their naked eyes, forcing them to rely on the senses of their souls to follow its trajectory. Even late overgods were unable to dodge this attack that possessed such terrifying speed. They could only face it head-on. Master Chanlong had raised his guard against Jian Chen's profound sword qi long ago. The moment it shot out, Master Chanlong pulled back his 8 trigrams disc that influenced the space in the surroundings. The disc flickered with profound inscriptions as it turned into a huge shield before Master Chanlong. Boom! The profound sword qi struck the disc and emitted a great boom. A terrifying force emerged, which pushed the 8 trigrams disc into Master Chanlong's body. Spurt! Master Chanlong vomited blood as he was blown far away with his disc. The space immediately returned to its previous state without the disturbances caused by the 8 trigrams disc. Hao Yu and even the overgods recovered their speeds. At that moment, terrifying pressures permeated the surroundings. The overgods all attacked Fairy Hao Yu as chains of energy shot towards her. At the same time, they held treasures in their hands to prepare against Jian Chen's second strand of profound sword qi at any time. Fairy Hao Yu's body was not as tough as Jian Chen's. Moreover, Master Chanlong's palm strike had injured her, so she was now heavily injured. She was unable to dodge all the attacks from the overgods. After all, she was just a late god right now. Swish! With a flash of silver-white light, Jian Chen launched his second strand of profound sword qi. However, he did not target a single person within the group. Instead, he aimed at the attacks launched from all of them. Boom! 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 With a string of rumbles, the profound sword qi directly tore through 10 attacks before dispersing. The chains of energies from 6 remaining mid-overgods continued towards Fairy Hao Yu aggressively. Chapter 1777, Escape. After using the 2 strands of profound sword qi, Jian Chen's power of the soul was completely drained. Dizziness descended, making him seem tipsy. Jian Chen bit down on his tongue, and heart-wrenching pain immediately flooded out, causing his head to immediately quiver. His consciousness snapped back from the dizziness and sleepiness. Daluo sword. Tai sword technique. Determination flooded Jian Chen's eyes as a sliver of madness appeared in them. He used his sword techniques as quickly as possible, sending out 2 strands of sword qi. Boom! Boom! Jian Chen's 2 strands of powerful sword qi collided with 2 chains of energy. Even though his sword techniques possessed extraordinary power, the power of the laws of the sword he could use right now clearly could not compare to the power he wielded at his peak condition. After all, the power of his soul had been completely drained. As a result, the sword qi was far weaker than usual. Jian Chen's 2 strands of sword qi dispersed, while the 2 chains of energy continued onwards without slowing down at all. They hurtled towards Jian Chen, only becoming much weaker. Jian Chen circulated chaotic force as he pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limit. He used his body to stand before the injured Fairy Hao Yu. Along with an angry roar, he swung his fists toward the two chains of energy. Chaotic force surrounded the fists, radiating with a destructive presence. It was very difficult for him to use his laws of the sword at the level of Overgod now that the power of his soul was drained. He had blown up the flying snow sword as well, so the only weapon Jian Chen possessed right now were his fists. Using the twin swords before so many Overgods was just asking for trouble. Although it was unlikely that Overgods would recognize the twin swords, as even many God Kings would not recognize them, he was afraid that the news would make it out and experts who did recognize the swords would get wind of it. Jian Chen struck the two chains of energy heavily with a boom. His body shook violently as his hands turned into bloody messes. They bled profusely. Jian Chen frowned from the intense pain. At that moment, he could feel that he had almost lost all sensation in his hand. Numbness accompanied the pain, and it even made him wonder if his arms remained or not. At the same time, the chains of energy from the four other mid-overgods landed on Jian Chen's body. He immediately vomited blood and was blown away. Behind Jian Chen was Fairy Hao Yu. He naturally struck her immediately, and the two of them basically stuck together as they were blown into the distance. Jian Chen could smell the special fragrance of a woman and some softness against his back, but he was in no position to think about these things right now. His face had paled, and he coughed up blood. He was heavily injured. His chaotic body was very powerful, but his opponents right now were mid-overgods, and there were over a dozen of them. Jian Chen did not possess any advantages in the laws of the sword before mid-overgods, and his personal cultivation was much weaker as well. He did not possess a weapon either. Aside from the toughness and regeneration of his chaotic body, he basically possessed no more advantages. Jian Chen, you clearly already made it out alive, so why did you return? Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. Even though Fairy Hao Yu was heavily injured and basically in a hopeless situation, she remained extremely composed. She was not flustered at all, as if she did not realize just how hopeless the situation she faced was. What do you think? I've come back for you, or you probably would have fallen for Master Chanlong's trap already. You would have been sent to a place he has already prepared. Don't talk so much now. You go first. There are too many of them. I can't last for too long, Jian Chen said sternly. Afterwards, he pushed Fairy Hao Yu far away. At the same time, he swallowed a healing pill he had obtained from God King Duanmu's dwelling and rapidly circulated his chaotic body, healing as quickly as he could. Fairy Hao Yu watched Jian Chen push her far away with rather mixed emotions while he faced off over a dozen overgods. She sighed gently inside and immediately stopped. She quickly charged back towards Jian Chen. What are you coming back for? We're not their opponents. Jian Chen panicked when he saw Fairy Hao Yu actually return, and he called out with some frustration. He could last a short while against over a dozen overgods with his chaotic body. Once Fairy Hao Yu had fled, he could run away with the linear lightning release. However, now that Fairy Hao Yu had returned, Jian Chen's plan for escape fell through. He was no longer able to use it. He did not feel confident about escaping from the overgods with Fairy Hao Yu at all. What do you think? I've come back to save you. Do you think you can still escape from the pursuit of over a dozen overgods? Moreover, there are even late overgods among them, Fairy Hao Yu said sarcastically. She quickly arrived before Jian Chen, and before he could react, her arm grabbed around Jian Chen's waist. At the same time, she burned her vitality through a secret technique, and a huge moon immediately appeared. It enveloped Jian Chen and Fairy Hao Yu, shining with blinding light. The light was so bright that no one dared to stare at it directly. Even the overgods could not help but close their eyes before the light. The light came and went quickly. When it vanished, the huge moon had vanished as well, along with Fairy Hao Yu and Jian Chen. Oh no, we've let them escape, the overgods all swore as they stared at the empty space with sunken faces. The senses of their souls blanketed the region as they searched for traces of the two. However, they found nothing in the end. Let alone their traces, they even failed to find their presence in the region enclosed by the senses of their souls. Clearly, Jian Shen and Fairy Hao Yu had departed from the region that they could cover with their souls in a short instance. Master Chanlong flew over from afar with a sunken face. He stared at where Jian Shen and Fairy Hao Yu had vanished from as his entire body shook from anger. Chapter 1778, Reunion, Impressive, Impressive. That kiddo really is just too impressive. I really must hold him in high esteem. He clearly hasn't been cultivating for long, yet he possesses such great strength. What a prodigy. He must be a prodigy, a supreme prodigy. As a matter of fact, the trapped soul flew over from afar and constantly muttered beside Master Chanlong, Master Chanlong, you really have caused trouble for yourself now. You actually offended a supreme prodigy. The soul acted as if he had sunk into his thoughts and said seriously, with my eyes that can see through the mysteries of the world, I can tell that the kid hasn't cultivated for 1,000 years. No, 1,000 years is too long. It should only be a few hundred. Even a few hundred is a little long. It should be even shorter. Are you trying to say he has only cultivated for a century? Master Chanlong could not help but sneer in response to the soul's exaggerated praise from Jian Shen. He snickered at the soul's words. Yeah, it should be 100 years. That shouldn't be too far off, the soul nodded seriously. However, he soon became stunned. He said in complete surprise, Chanlong, how did you know that the kid has only cultivated for 100 years? Can you see through the mysteries of the world like me? Master Chanlong laughed scornfully. He no longer bothered with the trapped soul. His hand seals changed, and the huge python before him immediately turned into several formation banners, which he now clutched in his hand. Chanlong, I haven't even told you yet. How did you know that kid has only been cultivating for 100 years? A mental pulse emerged from the formation banners. Reaching over God in 100 years? Do you think I'm as easy to trick as a kid? Master Chanlong sneered. He stared at the soul like it was an idiot check, and with a wave of his hand, he directly put the formation banners away in his space ring. Jian Shen and Fairy Hao Yu sat beneath a large tree in a mountain range that stretched for millions of kilometers. They had consumed healing pills, and were currently working on their wounds. Although Jian Shen had withstood the attacks from several mid-overgods, he used just 2 hours to make a full recovery thanks to the toughness of his chaotic body. Jian Shen opened his eyes after healing. He saw Fairy Hao Yu sitting nearby and knew that it was very difficult for her to achieve a full recovery without a few days to do so. As a result, he arrived somewhere nearby and took out the Bright Moon Divine Hall from his space ring. He entered it by himself. Big brother, you've finally come to see us. We haven't seen you in so long. I miss you so much. A familiar voice rang out as soon as Jian Shen entered the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Xiaoling in a white dress bounded over excitedly, and she tightly clung onto Jian Shen's arm. Jian Shen glanced over and discovered that everyone was not actually cultivating. They sat in a hall as they spoke with the people from the Mo clan and the Ando clan. However, everyone was looking at Jian Shen now. Moore, you've reached late reciprocity? Jian Shen's gaze landed on the purple-dressed Shangguan Moore first, and he immediately beamed. Shangguan Moore could not help but smile when she saw Jian Shen. She said, you better look carefully. I'm not the only one who has reached peak reciprocity. Jian Shen immediately looked around carefully when he heard that and discovered that indeed, Shangguan Moore was not the only one who had reached peak reciprocity. Houston, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, the White Tiger, and the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast had all reached peak reciprocity. Although Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian had not reached peak reciprocity yet, they had reached early reciprocity. Even newbies, who always wore golden robes, had reached early reciprocity. Among the 5 people from the world of Forsaken Saints, Xiongzhong had reached peak reciprocity. The strengths of the 4 other returnance elders had increased drastically as well, reaching mid-reciprocity. Although it had not been very long since they came to the saints' world, everyone had progressed extremely quickly. It was something that was unimaginable if they remained in the lower world. Good, good, good. Looks like there are going to be godhood experts among the people from our lower world. Jian Shen was extremely pleased and could not help but laugh aloud. We're only able to cultivate so quickly because of Big Brother's divine crystals. Our cultivation speed would be far slower without them, said Xiao Jin. He had grown now that a few years had passed. He seemed around 8 or 9 now. Of course, that was not his actual age. It was just that he was a metal spirit, a natural spirit of the world, so his body grew extremely slowly. If it were not for how fragile this divine hall is, I could have reached godhood at any time, the white tiger said proudly. The laws of the world were the key to godhood, but he had already grasped them back on the Tianyuan continent. Houston also walked over. He stared at Jian Shen benevolently and said, Jian Shen, how's the situation outside? It's best if you find a time to let us all out. Quite a few of us have reached the limits of cultivating here. Continuing to cultivate would be pointless. At the same time, we need to comprehend the laws of the world to reach godhood. We can only become deities sooner outside. At that time, this old bag of bones will be able to help you out with your problems. Although it's very difficult for a deity to help, don't forget that I cultivate the Empyrean demon arts. Coupled with the Empyrean demon orb, I'll be able to share a part of your burden. Jian Shen laughed aloud. Uncle Xiao, just focus on your cultivation. Your current strength isn't much if you compare it to the saints' world as a whole, but it'll still be enough for you to gain a stable footing in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. You'll all be able to go outside and see the saints' world before long. Jian Shen also became filled with eagerness as he said that. He really could reign supreme in a region within the divine kingdom with his current strength. He planned on settling down in the Dong'an province with everyone once the matters of God King Duanmu's dwelling were resolved. He could potentially settle them down there for the time being. After all, he could not run around all the time. Moreover, even Jian Shen had no idea if he could continue to keep his special identity a secret. Once it was revealed, he was worried that he would become the public enemy of the saints' world. Afterwards, Jian Shen provided guidance to everyone's cultivation, shared his own personal experiences with cultivation, comprehending the laws of the world. He also searched through the space rings of the gods and overgods he had slain, removing some helpful cultivation methods, battle skills, and so on. He handed it all over, hoping that it would be helpful to them. He did not let them out immediately, as he had just managed to escape from the hands of over a dozen overgods earlier. He had no idea whether the overgods would come looking for him. Right now, he still had not completely evaded danger, so letting them out now would be extremely inconvenient. This was because what he worried the most about was their breakthroughs being disturbed. If an overgod just happened to arrive when they were all breaking through, it would pose a great problem. Chapter 1779, Going Separate Ways. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had already passed. Jian Shen's face suddenly changed as he was guiding everyone in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. After bidding farewell to them all, he directly left the Divine Hall and appeared in the outside world. Fairy Hao Yu's white clothes ruffled outside the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Her black hair draped down her back, and her face was flawless. She stood outside the Divine Hall indifferently as she gave off a sacred presence. She seemed just like an otherworldly goddess that had transcended mortal affairs. "You fully recovered?" Jian Shen said indifferently as he calmly gazed at Fairy Hao Yu. Fairy Hao Yu stared at Jian Shen and did not reply immediately. However, after a moment of silence, she replied with the same type of calmness, "Yep. I've fully recovered, except I haven't fully recovered my strength. I've used up everything in Duanmu's space ring that would help me regain my strength and create my body. The remaining items all belong to you. There are still a few precious items in there." With that, Fairy Hao Yu tossed God King Duanmu's space ring to Jian Shen. Jian Shen did not hold back. He directly extended his hand and caught the space ring. He played around with it in his hand. He did not immediately check the contents. Fairy Hao Yu continued, Duanmu's legacy isn't in there. There's nothing that's related to a cultivation method in there. Duanmu's true legacy must be the sword. Ling Hogong has already obtained the golden flying sword. He really is quite lucky, except he has now offended a vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult. Huayan, Jianchen sighed gently. He really did not know whether it was worth it for Ling Hogong to make a decision like that. Jianchen, what do you plan on doing next? Fairy Hao Yu asked. After a moment of silence, Jianchen replied, I plan on returning to the Dong'an province and gain a footing there for now. That way, I can provide a safe cultivation environment for the people who came up with me from the lower world. At this moment, Jianchen seemed to think of something. Oh right, I've confirmed where we are currently located. We are on the cloud plain of the 49 Great Plains. I wonder how distant your moon god hall is. The cloud plain, Fairy Hao Yu murmured. She immediately frowned, and after a moment of silence, she said, the moon god hall is on the polar ice plain that one of the 7 grand exalts, the ice goddess, oversees. It's extremely distant from the cloud plain, and I'll have to cross through over a dozen plains in total to reach there. The only way back is through a plane-level teleportation formation. The costs to use them was nothing to me in the past, but it's an astronomical figure to us now. Fairy Hao Yu furrowed her brows tightly. With a wave of his hand, Jianchen took out the remaining block of high-grade divine crystal he possessed without any hesitation. He said to her, take this block of divine crystal. I only have this block and a few smaller pieces. Fairy Hao Yu immediately became stunned when she saw the block of high-grade divine crystals before breaking out into laughter. She said to Jianchen, if you use this single block, it'll be nowhere near enough to make it to even the closest plane. Even if you take out 100 times that amount, it won't be enough. What? Using a teleportation formation costs so much? Jianchen was the one to be shocked now. A block of high-grade divine crystal was a rather large sum to him already, yet it was not even enough to use a teleportation formation. Using plane-level teleportation formations requires 5 colored divine crystals. Your block is equivalent to 1 million standard high-grade divine crystals. If you convert them into supreme quality divine crystals, it'll only be 10,000 standard-sized divine crystals, yet a 1-color divine crystal is worth 100 times more than a high-grade divine crystal as well. As a result, your block of divine crystal is only worth 100 standard 1-colored divine crystals. From the 1-colored divine crystals to the 5-colored divine crystals, each additional color increases its value by 10-fold. Your block of divine crystal is worth a standard 3-color divine crystal. Jianchen also frowned. Only now did he understand that it was actually so expensive to use a plane-level teleportation formation. Fairy Hao Yu also became worried. Only primordial realm experts possess colored divine crystals. Looks like I won't be able to return to the polar ice plain immediately. I wonder how my father is doing. Your worry is unneeded right now. Although I have no idea what your father is facing, you won't be of any help at all even if you hurry over immediately with your current strength, said Jianchen. Fairy Hao Yu nodded, you're right. I am indeed too weak. I might even end up dead on the way back. My priority right now is to restore my strength. After making up her mind, Fairy Hao Yu's gaze became determined. At that moment, her presence underwent a tremendous change as well. Jianchen's eyes narrowed as he stared at Fairy Hao Yu with some surprise. At that moment, he could suddenly feel a chilling presence from Fairy Hao Yu. It had even given him the impression that even though Fairy Hao Yu was only a late god, she could crush him like an ant, where he would not be able to fight back at all. She really is a primordial realm expert, Jianchen thought as his gaze towards Fairy Hao Yu changed as well. I need to go restore my strength. Jianchen, take this jade talisman with you. Whenever you encounter danger, just crush the talisman, and I'll head over as soon as possible. Of course, it's best that you use it after 5 years have passed from now. Fairy Hao Yu passed a pure white token to Jianchen before directly leaving. She wanted to try her own luck to restore her strength back to her peak as soon as possible. Jian Shen watched Fairy Haoyu leave. He finally looked at the token in his hand after she had completely left. The token was snow white and made from precious jade. A small moon was sculpted onto it. Jian Shen could sense an imprint of Fairy Haoyu's soul within the small moon. Jian Shen put the token away and left the place with the bright moon divine hall. After gaining his bearings, he directly flew towards the Dong'an province. As all the treasures of God King Duanmu's dwelling had been taken away, the disturbances its appearance had caused gradually died down. The overgods that had gathered in the dwelling left one by one as well. However, there was still a large group of people gathered within the dwelling as they searched with determination. There were many origin realm cultivators as well as a few deities and gods. They combed through every inch of the dwelling seriously in hopes of an unexpected blessing. There were also a few people who comprehended the laws of the sword that gathered in the second stone hut aside from them, studying the slashes left behind by God King Duanmu. People poured in and out of the great city gates of the provincial city of the Dong'an province. Luxurious carriages drawn by rare beasts rolled along quickly. Chapter 1780. Coming across Qianlong again, there were not just the natives of the Dong'an province within the provincial city. There were many other people from the other 35 provinces of the divine kingdom of Pingtian as well. There were even a few merchants, adventurers, and so on from other divine kingdoms. With the great flow of people, the city was extremely busy. An ordinary young man who only seemed to be in his 20s made his way through the crowd. He followed the people into the city, wearing luxurious robes while maintaining a low profile. The young man's appearance was nothing special, and his strength was average. He was only at the peak of reciprocity. He was the type that could be found in large numbers within the Dong'an province. Stop. What's your name, and where do you come from? Why have you come to the provincial city? Just when the young man was about to enter the city, guards stopped him like everyone else and asked the same questions. I'm Yang Yutian. I come from the sword-seeking province. I've obviously come to the provincial city with plans of settling down. The young man clasped his hands and smiled indifferently. The guard who stopped Yang Yutian glanced at him. Seeing his luxurious robes, the guard determined that he must have possessed some background, so the guard immediately stopped blocking him. The guard smiled. Take this. This is your jade pendant for identification. Just pay 100 low-grade divine crystals, and you can enter. I hope you can settle down in the provincial city. Remember, don't forget to charge up your identification token. If you get caught by guards, don't blame me for not reminding you. Yang Yutian paid 100 low-grade divine crystals for the identification token. He discovered a number of 100 on the token. He could not help but smile when he read the explanation behind the token, and he said, "It's 1 low-grade divine crystal per day in the provincial city. That means it's over 300 for a year. Once the number on the token reaches 0, the guards of the city will even capture you. Looks like not everyone can enter the provincial city. Just a single year costs over 300 low-grade divine crystals, and that's not including living expenses. You can't just cultivate on the streets in the provincial city, or the guards will capture you for that as well. But there's a large-scale energy-gathering formation in the city. The origin energy here is several times denser than the outside world. It really will be much faster cultivating here than outside." Yang Yutian strolled through the streets aimlessly as he murmured to himself. He was clearly Jian Shen who had changed his appearance. Jian Shen was in no hurry to reveal himself within the provincial city. Instead, he silently entered the place to check on the situation. He and Fairy Haoyu had benefited the most from God King Duanmu's dwelling. At the same time, they basically offended all the overgods who had gathered there. He really did worry that the overgods would expect him to appear in the provincial city and were waiting for him here. Although he no longer feared most overgods with his current strength, he was afraid of being surrounded, so he had to be careful. Suddenly, Jian Shen froze slightly. He raised his head towards the sky, and he gradually became grim. He carefully let out the senses of his soul as he cautiously expanded it. Suddenly, Jian Chen's face changed. Without any hesitation, he immediately flew towards outside the city. At the same time, the space pulsed gently. A huge formation hidden there appeared in an instant, releasing extremely powerful pulses of energy. It enveloped the entire provincial city. Linear lightning release. Jian Chen formed a seal with his hand, and he turned into a bolt of lightning. Just when the formation was about to envelope the entire provincial city, he escaped by a hair's breadth and avoided the trap. You really have come to the provincial city. Where do you think you're going? You're staying right here. Master Chanlong suddenly appeared in the sky above the city. His expression was rather strange. He was filled with excitement as he pursued Jian Chen with his full speed. At this moment, the formation that Master Chanlong set up earlier had engulfed the city. It was an extremely powerful trapping formation, preventing anyone in the city from leaving the place. The presence of several dozen gods appeared at virtually the same time across the entire city when the formation engulfed the entire place. Whether it was the people from the powerful clans or the gods from other places, they all roared out angrily as they charged towards the sky. They directly attacked the formation over the city. Who is it? Who is bold enough to seal up the entire provincial city? The provincial city is the capital of one of the 36 provinces of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. Are you not afraid of the Divine King's rage, sir? The ancestors of the powerful clans all bellowed out. All their faces had sunken. However, Master Chanlong had already shot off into the distance in pursuit of Jian Chen, leaving behind no trace. Jian Chen hovered in the sky with a cold expression a million kilometers away from the city as he stared coldly as Master Chanlong. He had only used the linear lightning release earlier to escape from the formation. After all, Master Chanlong's skill with formations was so great that even late overgods would struggle to smash through them. Once he became trapped in the formation, he would be forced into an extremely bad position. Jian Chen, why aren't you running anymore? Go on, keep fleeing. Master Chanlong smiled at Jian Chen with his 8 trigrams disc in hand, acting like Jian Chen was done for today. At the same time, he was secretly surprised by the accuracy of the trapped soul's prediction. It had actually predicted that Jian Chen would appear in the provincial city. Master Chanlong, do you want what I obtained from God King Duanmu's dwelling? Jian Chen stared at the dignified, sage-like Master Chanlong. Master Chanlong immediately stopped smiling when he heard that. Cold killing intent appeared in his eyes, and he said, that's only the first matter. You ruined my plans, so how can I spare you? Do you really think you can kill me just by yourself, even if you're a late overgod? Jian Chen said coldly. Do you really think you can act as you please before me with your 2 strands of powerful sword qi? Master Chanlong growled. With a wave of his hand, he immediately tossed out a few formation banners. As his hand's seals changed, the banners joined together. In the blink of an eye, it reassembled into a huge python again. Kid, you're actually here too. To no surprise, the trapped soul remained within the huge python. He saw that it was Jian Chen with a single glance and spoke in surprise. But soon afterwards, he turned his huge head towards Master Chanlong and said proudly, Chanlong, I told you this kid would appear in the provincial city of the Dong'an province back then. Do you believe me now? I was right. Master Chanlong, looks like you have guessed right this time. Listen up, you have to stop him no matter what this time. However, Jian Chen became filled with shock when he heard the trapped soul's words. How does that trapped soul know that I would go to the provincial city? Jian Chen thought in disbelief. Chapter 1781, A Fierce Struggle Against Chanlong. Chanlong, this kid might be young, but he's a supreme prodigy. You can't kill him. Are you certain you want to keep fighting him? The trapped soul asked Master Chanlong. Kex was clearly rather hesitant. Master Chanlong's expression remained the same. Not only did his killing intent not weaken, but it even became heavier instead. He said coldly, "Jian ruined it all for me, so how can I let him go? So what if he's a supreme prodigy? Do it." With that, the 8 trigrams disc in Master Chanlong's hand shone brightly. Countless lines of complicated and profound inscriptions flickered, creating a set of armor completely composed of flickering inscriptions on him. At the same time, his hand's seals varied, creating formations after formations in space that shot towards Jian. What a madman. Chanlong, you're mad. You're even willing to offend supreme prodigies. I can already see that you won't be able to live for another 100 years. I can see your life being ended in the kid's hands in a few decades, the trapped soul said angrily. Although that was what he said, he did not choose to stand around. He swished his tail and directly charged for Jian. He said in the meantime, "Kid, you clearly saw everything. The one who wants to do things to you is not me, but that old man called Chanlong. In the future, if you want to take revenge, directly take revenge against Chanlong. Don't blame me." With that, the soul controlled the huge python. With a crack, he sent the python's tail towards Jian mercilessly. Jian also moved. His gaze was cold as cold killing intent flickered in his eyes as well. Chaotic force circulated within him, filling up every inch of his body. He did not dodge the python's attack. Instead, he directly charged towards Master Chanlong. Bang! The python's huge tail slammed into Jian's back, turning his back into a bloody mess. It revealed white bone. However, as soon as the wound appeared, it rapidly closed up under Jian's circulation of chaotic force. He healed up so quickly that the soul within the python sighed in amazement. Jian borrowed the force of the attack to charge towards Master Chanlong even faster. He moved with lightning speed. He put his palms together as he controlled the power of the laws of the sword. A white sword chi extended from his hands as it surged brightly. It stabbed towards Master Chanlong's head as if it was unstoppable. Master Chanlong was stern. Jian simply moved too quickly. Not only had his huge python failed to stop him at all, but it had even allowed him to move even faster instead. He was unable to finish casting down his killing formation in that time at all. An incomplete killing formation was completely useless against Jian with his power. With no other choice, Master Chanlong formed 2 seals with his hands and called out, "Explode." With a boom, the incomplete killing formation blew up loudly. Terrifying energy shockwaves wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The energy was so powerful that even peak gods would be reduced to ashes if they were struck. The shockwaves immediately injured Jian. He rapidly circulated his chaotic force, and on the surface of his body, chaotic force seemed to be flowing through. He used his tough body to endure the shockwaves. His clothes were reduced to dust, revealing his slender body. Soon afterwards, bloody marks appeared, and blood flowed out. However, in the next moment, all the wounds closed up at a visible rate. Linear lightning release. Jian suddenly formed a hand seal amidst the violent energy. As the seal was completed, the blown-back Jian turned into a bolt of lightning. He seemed to have become an extremely large sword, shooting towards Master Chanlong with unbelievable speed. Bang! Jian used the linear lightning release to stab Master Chanlong with his own body. The armor from the inscriptions of Master Chanlong's 8 trigrams disc immediately dulled while the terrifying force launched him far away. Although Master Chanlong was a late over god, he mainly focused on formations. Open battles were his weakness. Now that he faced Jian, he was unable to use his formations immediately, so he immediately fell into a disadvantaged position. Killing intent flickered through Jian's eyes. He pursued Master Chanlong as the huge python attacked him from behind. The python lunged towards Jian with its gaping mouth open. With a single movement, Jian left behind an afterimage and appeared before the python's heart in an instant. Forming a seal, he used the Daluo sword and a golden sword chi immediately appeared over his hand. Jian Shen extended his right hand and directly grabbed the Daluo sword, heavily stabbing down on where the python's heart would have been. However, the golden sword chi shattered when he stabbed it down. It failed to harm the python at all. The place that he struck was unimaginable tough. "Kid, why are you targeting the place where my defenses are the thickest?" the soul within the huge python said complacently. On the other side, Master Chanlong was already several dozen kilometers away. He had become a black speck. He hovered in the sky, and blood oozed from the corner of his lip. His hands had turned into a blur as he changed between his hand seals as quickly as he could. He began to cast down formations as he tossed out a formation banner. Jian Shen knew that he would be at a complete disadvantage once Master Chanlong managed to finish casting down a formation. He glanced at the python coldly before no longer bothering with it anymore. He quickly charged towards Master Chanlong instead. At the same time, strands of sword chi shot out like bolts of light, tearing through the sky as streaks of light towards Master Chanlong. "You're not allowed to run. Chanlong wants me to keep you busy." "Kid, just blame Chanlong." The huge python swung its tail and stopped Jian Chen. Jian Chen's face sank. The huge python before him was extremely tough all over. It was quite difficult for him to harm it at all with his current strength. Suddenly, two strands of profound sword chi appeared above his head. The profound sword chi were only the size of a finger, but the sword intent they gave off even struck fear into the hearts of late overgods. "This again. Kid, don't shoot, don't shoot. Just don't shoot at me." "Shoot it at Chanlong." The trapped soul immediately became terrified when it saw the profound sword chi. It rapidly retreated, clearly extremely frightened of the profound sword chi. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.